As you may or may not know, my wife and I just got back from Vegas. It was a great trip. We ate, we drank, we had a blast. But then we got home and looked at the credit card, and I gotta say, it doesn't matter how much fun you're having, $25 for a drink is a ripoff. Frickin' Vegas. I hate getting ripped off, and so do the lads over at Harry's. They spent years watching the razor blade companies rip people off and said, no more. Not all heroes wear capes, my friends, and they want to prove that they're legit by offering you hot dogs a $13 trial set for just $3 at harrys.com/RTG. I've been telling you about them for months, and I'm genuinely proud to have Harry's as a sponsor of this show. I wasn't kidding. The plastic, futuristic-looking crap razors you get at the store are overpriced and they're poor quality. Harry's blades are crisp, clean, and classy. They're the kind of razor you'd expect your grandpa to have on his bathroom counter. And most importantly, they work. Shave after shave, they're so smooth, they're precise. I used to go through the crappy store blades all the time, but Harry's are built to last. And they're not just better quality than the other names, they're more affordable. And they deliver. Just set your schedule, and for as little as $2, new blades, shaving creams, lotions, everything you need, right to your door when you need it. I genuinely cannot think of a reason not to try Harry's. And I'm not just saying this because they're sponsors. They're the best shaving supplies I've ever used. Try them out, and if you're not happy, your shave's on them. And unlike the other subscriptions, they're really easy to cancel if you want to too, which is a nice bonus, but believe me, you're not going to want to cancel. Getting ripped off isn't funny. Switch to Harry's. Get started with a $13 trial set for just $3 at harrys.com/RTG. That's harrys.com/RTG for a $3 trial set. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Remember the Game. It is my retro gaming podcast where every week a buddy of mine and I sit down and we geek out about the games we played back in the day. My name is Adam Blank. Thank you so much for listening to the show. And this week it is episode 152, and it's one of our Patreon poll winning episodes. Very special. As you may know from my obnoxious Patreon plug each and every week, one of the perks our Patreons get is the chance to vote for a game that we'll cover on the show each month. Now, the polls are made up of games that I have not played that our listeners have asked for us to cover on the show. And Parasite Eve for the PlayStation 1 took the... It feels so weird calling it the PlayStation 1 and not just the PlayStation, but the PS1, I guess it is anyway. Parasite Eve for the PS1 took down the poll back in April. My apologies for the delay on how long this took. I usually try to get the poll winners up the following month. Obviously, I need time to play them and then do the episode and everything. But I had a harder time tracking down Parasite Eve to be able to play it this time around. So shout out to my buddy Dave for giving me a sweetheart deal on a PlayStation 3. I then bought it off the PS3 PSN for $6. I played through it, and I have a lot to say about this thing. Quick note, by the way, if you still have a PS3 hooked up, log into the PSN. I mean, there's no crazy sales or anything on there, but there's a lot of PS1 and PS2. There's a lot of shit on there. I'm hoping they throw like a big sale before they do finally close the PSN for the PlayStation 3. I'm gonna stock up, man. It's worth having one just for that stuff. But anyway, very funky game, Parasite Eve. My guest this week, returning to the show, is my good buddy Tyler, regular here at Remember the Game Industries, and we had a nice beefy chat about Aya, Aya, the protagonist of Parasite Eve. I could say it as Aya or Aya, just depending on my mood. So I may say both for the rest of this podcast. But we had a nice beefy chat about Aya, about Eve, about parasites, about spontaneous combustion, which this game is full of. It was a good game. It was just a little slow for my liking. But we'll get into that because speaking of being just a little slow, it's time for yet another edition of the Remember the Game infamous intro. And if you're new to the podcast, welcome aboard. Consider this your warning. Our intros are quite long. Maybe you started listening to the old episodes where they were only like 25 minutes long total. Our intros have a little bit of beef to them now, but they're fun. It's lots of video game talk, stuff like that, good times. Our intros, we're the roller coaster as it's climbing the track. We're climbing, and you're just getting ready to try not to shit your pants. That's how I would describe our intro. It's just a bunch of people trying not to shit their pants. We have merchandise. I plug it every week. We have hoodies, t-shirts, coffee mugs, and I've actually got a lot of good feedback on the t-shirts and the hoodies as far as the quality goes. And I have some myself. I wear them. I ordered samples before we listed them just to make sure that they felt good and they weren't shitty. And they're actually really comfortable. So you can find all of our merch over at rememberthegamepodcast.com. It features sweet art drawn by my boy Joe over at 4545creative.com. So if you're interested, check that out. Great way to support the podcast. And of course, the easiest way, the cheapest way to support the podcast is supporting us over on the old Patreon service. We smashed the 300. We were at like 296 or 297 last week. We're almost 310 now. We fucking smashed that 300 milestone. Onward and upward, baby. So thank you all so much for the support. And you get, dude, I'm telling you, the value you get on Patreon. And I don't often suck my own dick on the show. Well, maybe I do. I don't think I do. But we give a lot of value for your dollar over there. For just $2 US a month, you get a mountain of stuff on Patreon. And in addition to all that other stuff, you get 2 extra podcasts every week. You get exclusive access to both my gaming news show, Game Patch, every Friday morning, along with my gaming discussion podcast, Expansion Pass, every Sunday morning. You also get instant access to the entire back catalog of those. There's well over 100 podcasts sitting in there now. This past Sunday on Expansion Pass, we made our E3 predictions, as every gaming podcast is contractually obligated to do. And as is becoming tradition here in the intro, here's a sneak peek of last Sunday's Expansion Pass, our E3 2021 predictions. So this is my Ubisoft prediction. And maybe it gets announced at Xbox's presentation. Maybe it gets announced at Ubisoft's. But my personal next prediction is that Ubisoft Connect, which was Ubisoft Play, which is their EA Play / Game Pass, whatever, will be added to Game Pass Ultimate. It'll be rolled in just like EA Play is. So when you sign up for a Game Pass Ultimate subscription, you instantly get access to Ubisoft Connect. And they're going to do it as of today or as of this week, or maybe they can't do today because then they'd have to add all these games. But in the next couple of weeks, if it's not that day, like by July, Ubisoft Connect will officially be part of Game Pass Ultimate. All of us Game Pass hot dogs, Game Pass nerds. I was going to say nerds, but we're hot dogs. All of us Game Pass hot dogs lose our shit, get super excited. It means I don't have to pay for Far Cry 6 because it's going to be coming right to my goddamn Game Pass. And it makes sense. Ubisoft discounts their games 24 hours after they're released. So that was last Sunday's episode. And now for this weekend's show, I think I'm going to review Returnal for the PlayStation 5. I've been playing it quite a bit. I have a lot to say. Frankly, I think it's taking a little bit more shit than it deserves. And so I think that's where we're going to go with it. I really want to do a ranking episode again soon too. And I've been thinking about ranking my favorite non-Nintendo franchises. At some point, I'm going to rank the Nintendo franchises too. But a lot of people ask about the games, because everyone knows, I think, I'm a Nintendo homer. But I have some absolute favorite franchises outside of Nintendo. So we're going to do that, I think. So in one order or the other, those will probably be the next 2 expansion passes. A Returnal review and a ranking of non-Nintendo franchises. I'm definitely going to be doing a review of Ratchet & Clank in the coming weeks, and I'll probably review Mario Golf as well. We got lots of games coming out soon, so I'm going to start throwing reviews in there. All kinds of fun stuff going on over in Expansion Pass World. And then for looking back on E3, we'll do that on next week's Game Patch, which is my gaming news show. I might even flip the order and do Game Patch a day early just to get all of the E3 news in there, but that'll be next week. So again, $2 gets you all those podcasts. And then in addition to all that, you get access to our Discord. You can vote in our Patreon poll. You can send in comments to be read on all the podcasts. You can DM with me, and you get a shout out and get to hear me mispronounce your name just like I'm about to do to a whole bunch of these people. A huge thank you to all of our newest Patreons. Fuck me. Here we go. Burgerack. Eden awaits 1981. Tunable Power, The Gray Bearded One, Dan Taylor, Swanee, Joshua J. Hazelman, Lukey Mole, and Danny Proudfoot. Thank you all so much. Welcome to Remember the Game Industries. Consider it a badge of honor if I mispronounced your name in there. Patreon.com/rememberthegame. This is a little independently owned show, and we're growing because of the support from all of you. So thank you very, very much. I have a P.O. Box. You can find the full address at our website, rememberthegamepodcast.com. Just shoot me something little, a letter, a postcard, something small. Let me know where you're listening. I'll send you Remember the Game postcard back, and we'll be best friends, and that'll be a lot of fun. And I stream on Twitch. I've disabled, or I will be disabling. I can't disable them right now because we have like $120 in the Twitch account from subs from you guys. And if I disable subs right now, Twitch will keep that. And it's not even that I need the $120, but fuck that. I'm not. They take too fucking much of this. I'm not gonna let them keep your money. So later this month, I'll be disabling subs on the channel, and then it'll be free. You can donate if you want, but I just expect you just come hang out and have fun. So I stream there. I try to shoot for Tuesday, Wednesday nights, Saturday afternoons. It doesn't always work, but just follow Member the Game over on Twitch, not Remember. Member the Game over on Twitch. It'll tell you whenever I'm on there, and then you can come hang out, play video games with me, yell at me, whatever you want to do. It's a lot of fun. Whew, that's enough blowing myself. Let's blow some of you by blowing in the cartridge. It is our opening segment on the show. I read a few comments and questions from our Patreons, usually gaming related, but not always. And we call this segment Blowing in the Cartridge.
He blows all right. He blows big time.
That's it, honey. Get into the spirit.
Let's blow. And just before I get into reading some individual comments, thank you to everyone that wrote in about the Streets of Rage episode from last week. Seriously, there was... we're getting up to 30 submissions on blowing in the cartridge every week, which is fucking insane. I can't read all of them. But we must have had 4 or 5 people write in just saying how they enjoyed the Streets of Rage episode from last week, how it inspired them to go out and try Streets of Rage. I didn't have a single person write in and say they thought the franchise was overrated or anything. We did have several people write in and be like, how have I never played this before? Which is exactly how I felt the first time I played Streets of Rage. So thank you for the nice comments. I really, really appreciate it. I just didn't want to blow smoke up my own ass for the whole segment and just read all these comments being like, hey, love your show, love the podcast. But I did read them all. I appreciated them all, and I'm glad you're all part of the Streets of Rage cult that I have become a member of myself. We're all drinking that ragey Kool-Aid. But now, some individual comments from people. Raging Demon wrote into us on Patreon and said, hey man, isn't it so bonkers that developers are literally nerfing all the next-gen games 8 months after next-gen consoles were released? These are crazy times. Chip shortages, game delays. You've mentioned it causing delays so that they can release a game on both generations at the same time, and you talked about it a little bit in the Discord as well. I just wanted to hear more of your thoughts on it. I kind of want them to just do what they did when they were phasing out 8-bit consoles and have drastically different versions and really see what they can do on the new hardware. I don't think it'd be that crazy to say this is going to go on for at least another year. And yeah, so what Demon's talking about, if you don't listen to our other podcasts, is last week it was announced that the upcoming God of War game is going to be available on both PS5 and PS4. And they've been, obviously, as you may or may not know, both Microsoft and Sony have been doing that a lot with their next games. And the thing is I get it, okay? Because I understand what you're saying, Demon, that you'd love to see them just kind of do what they did with the NES to SNES and just forget the old stuff. We're building the new stuff. I get that the technological jump from say the PS4 to the PS5 is not as insane as it was from the NES to the SNES. I get all that. And I also get why developers are putting games on last gen consoles plus next gen consoles, because there's 100-some million last gen systems out there. There's 5 million next gen. So if it's not that hard to right click, save as your game and make it a last gen system, then why not do it and put it on last gen? The reason I wanted to bring this up was because it did kind of spark several conversations in the Discord, on social media, on here on Patreon. And I just want to clarify, I don't think, for example, God of War 2 has been delayed into 2022 because of the fact that they're making it on PS4. I don't think putting games on last-gen hardware is causing these gigantic delays. That's not my problem with it. I don't even have a problem with, say, for the first year or so of PS5 and Xbox Series everything, putting the games that are made for those consoles on last-gen consoles as well, because not everyone can upgrade right away, and that way they can still experience it. I'm all for that. My problem with this is that God of War 2 is coming out in at least 2022. So, the PS5 potentially is going to be 2 years old when God of War 2 launches on it, and you're still putting it on PS4. It starts to beg the question Why did I shell out $500 or whatever it is I pay more here in Canada for a PS5 and an Xbox Series X when all of those systems or all the games are going to be on last gen hardware? At some point, you've got to commit to next gen. And I'm telling you, I don't know if the games are suffering being put onto consoles, but where my big qualm comes in is I promise you there are ideas being left on the development floor because they're like, well, last gen hardware can't run this. For example, the new Ratchet and Clank game that's coming out on PS5 this weekend is not available on PS4 because the game requires the SSD that is in the PS5 to make the whole thing you're ripping between dimensions work. To make the core gameplay mechanic work, you need next gen hardware. And that's what I want. It's not about taking games away from last generation. I don't think games are getting super delayed by being put on last generation hardware, but who knows what ideas they had for, say, Halo Infinite, or they had for God of War 2, that they had to leave out because last gen consoles can't run it. That's my problem, okay? I understand they're a business and they need to make money, but at some point, you gotta commit to the next gen hardware and you gotta make this hardware work and do the stuff that it's supposed to do and make these games special and justify to the millions of people out there that are spending hundreds of dollars on these systems. Why did we spend hundreds of dollars on these systems? You give us something. That's my, so just to make the record clear, that's my problem. All right, I'm all for letting last gen players play these games. It's not like I'm a snob who's like, well, I have a PS5 and anyone that hasn't upgraded yet shouldn't be allowed to play God of War 2. That's not it. My problem is like I've got this, technologically crazy advanced piece of video game hardware here, and you can't convince me that there's not certain things that this hardware could do that you're leaving behind so that you can make it run on last gen hardware as well. You can't convince me that there's not ideas getting left behind. That's my concern. Okay, so just for everyone that's been, because I've got a lot of messages from people saying like, dude, it's not delaying the games, and I don't think it's delaying the games that far either. I just think it's kind of, I don't know what the term I'm looking for. Watering them down, we'll say, is the term. So that's where I come out on all of this. Thanks for writing in, Demon, and I hope that explains my stance on it just a little bit better to those of you that have been yelling at me. Most of you haven't been yelling at me, but just for the record. Dan Taylor wrote, I like this comment. Dan Taylor wrote in on Patreon and said, imagine a company, for some reason, decides to release an Adam Blank action figure. What would the 5 catchphrases that it comes pre-programmed with be? For example, meat on the bone. So the reason I'm answering this, Dan, is not to make you feel bad or anything, but I was going to glaze over this because I was like, well, that kind of makes me look like an arrogant piece of shit if I'm like, what would my action figure say? But this question had like a dozen likes on the Patreon page, so clearly people thought it was funny. And I actually think it's funny myself. So I was like, all right, it's a good question. I'll answer that. I would love an action figure. First, my action figure would be that one that, when you go to Walmart and they have like the discount rack up by the checkout with like the dented cans and the about to expire baby food. My action figure would be sitting right there with it. Just the worst fucking action figure ever made. Maybe worse than the Al Gore doll that we all know and love. Shout out to anyone that gets that reference. What would my action figure say? That's a good question because I don't listen to myself. I fucking hate listening to myself. And to be fair, I didn't realize I said meat on the bone as much as I do until all of you started pointing it out. So meat on the bone is absolutely one of the 5 phrases. So you pull the strings, it's meat on the bone. Fuck right off has to be one. I need a line, which if you ever come by Tetris Tuesday on Twitch, I need a line. So I need a line is one. Son of an ass is probably one because I say that a lot. And then, my 5th one is my spider sense is tingling. And shout out to anyone gets that reference. And the reference isn't just to Spider-Man. There's a specific reference to a doll saying that when it's not supposed to. That would be my 5th one. And maybe something like, let's make some cookies so the boys will like us, which is the same reference as the Spider-Man thing. But fuck yeah. Maybe someday when we get big enough. You know what I want? A Funko. Dude, I would love a Funko of me and one of the eyes is fucking, anyway, rolling off the side of the head. I'm so full of myself. Okay, thanks, Dan. Omega88 wrote in and said, after messaging you about my game room wall art design, what are your favorite and least favorite game box art designs? After searching, I found some brilliant ones I didn't even know existed, and they all seem to be on the older system, which is perfect for my game room. So Omega had messaged me, and I don't remember what platform it was on. Omega, I think Twitter, my apologies. But Omega had messaged me being like, hey, I'm going to put some like I'm going to make some art or get like some posters or whatever from some classic box art. So they were asking me for any, and I suggested Turtles in Time because I think that game has phenomenal box art. So what are my favorite and least favorite game box art designs? My favorite is either Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game, where the 4 turtles are breaking through the brick wall on their skateboards. I've always wanted a poster of that. Or Mega Man 1 or 2. The ones where he's like a normal man holding a gun and they clearly knew nothing about the franchise. Those are easily my favorite box arts. My least favorite gaming box art? That's a good question. I don't know if I have a least favorite gaming box art. I mean, I got to give you something because it would be, I should have been ready for this. I truly can't think of one that like I hate, like a bad video game box art. I know it's, you know what? Super Mario World. Super Mario World's box art fucking sucks. Just that blue fucking single shade background with Mario sitting on Yoshi and Yoshi with that shit-eating grin on his face. It's my favorite game of all time. Maybe my least favorite box art. I fucking hate that box art. It could have been so much better than it was. So that would be my least favorite. Or Mario's missing because it makes it look like an actual game when it fucking isn't. So that would be, that'd be my answer. Super Dave wrote in and said, how many times have you walked into a retro game store with the intent of actually buying a game? Only about 1 out of 10 times have I actually walked out of my local store with a game for my GameCube, PS2, or Game Boy Advance. I just enjoy browsing through the memories, but I also feel slightly guilty for walking out. Dave, I would say 99 out of 100 times when I go into one of the stores here in Edmonton, I don't actually intend to buy a game. Because usually when I go into, like, we only have a few stores here, and I know there's a couple of good ones, but the one that comes to my mind is a place called Game City, and they're in some of the malls here in Edmonton. And they're just ridiculously priced, fucking obnoxiously priced. Like, I'm not giving you like $35 for a copy of Super Mario Brothers 3. Fist yourself. I get you have overhead and everything like that, but also I'm a cheap piece of shit and go to hell. So I'd say 99 out of 100 times I don't go in planning to buy anything. I go in to look around because my girlfriend is buying something boring and I'm like a little kid. She won't take me to, dude, I am a 37-year-old man and my girlfriend will not take me to a boring store. Because she knows that I'll just pout and whine. My feet hurt. I'm tired. I want to go home. So she just lets me go to the video. She says stay where she can see me, but she lets me go to the video game stores and I look around in there. Having said that, I am slow. I don't want to get into collecting again. I got out of collecting, but I am slowly accumulating the odd GameCube game again. So usually when I go in, that's what I look at, and I kind of hope to catch them sleeping and pick up like a Metroid Prime cheap or something, and it just never happens. But yeah, 99, and I don't feel guilty about it at all. I've worked fucking in those jobs. They don't give a shit. The kid falling asleep behind the counter doesn't fucking care. So support your local mom and pop video game stores if they're fucking not dickheads, and if they're complete pieces of shit, just go in there and look around and fucking wipe your nose on your hand and touch the boxes. And I'm gonna hear, someone's gonna fucking write in and yell at me for that, but I stand by it. James Anderson wrote in and said, so I started playing Mass Effect 1 on Game Pass. I love all types of RPGs, and I enjoyed BioWare's KOTOR series. I'm almost done with the first Mass Effect, and so far so good. The game does show its age, though. I'm begging for a sprint key. The walking is so slow, and a jump key. But the role-playing mechanics are solid, and the lore and story is interesting. Have you thought about doing a Mass Effect series episode of Expansion Pass, or maybe a Remember the Game episode with the Legendary Edition out, as it would just be as good a time of as any. So I have played all 3 of the Mass Effect games, James, and I really like them. Mass Effect 2 is the fucking gem. We have kind of loose plans to talk about a Mass Effect on the show eventually. The problem is that like I only ever played them one time, and I know that the Legendary Edition's out, and by all accounts, the Legendary Edition is really good. I have no interest in going back to that series because they're just too long. There's just way too much. I'm not going to use the meat on the bone phrase, but because there's a lot of fat in there too. It's not just meat, but they're just too big. So I don't really have any interest in playing them ever again. Like I have no intention of picking up the remastered trilogy or anything. But at some point, yeah, we are at some point we're gonna talk Mass Effect on the show. You guys have my word on that. At some point, we will talk. I would really like to just do an episode about Mass Effect 2 because it's one of my favorite RPGs ever. I think that game is a fucking masterpiece. So I'll tell you, James, by the way, if you're enjoying Mass Effect 1, you're going to love Mass Effect 2. So yeah, at some point we will talk about the Mass Effect games. Kaiser Dragon wrote in and said, okay, Adam, a little scene setting challenge for you here. It's a simple question, but it might be hard to answer. If you won $10,000 to spend on your own gaming den / man cave, what would you kit it out with? And we want the details down to the color of your shelving, light colors, the models / memorabilia you have on display. As I said, simple question, but without visual props, it's going to be trickier to answer. I'm sure you'll give us all a vivid image of how the Remember the Game industry's blank cave would look. Thanks for writing in, Dragon. You're not going to like my answer very much, but I actually, in our first house, because the house we live in now is a townhouse. This is our second place. We used to have a bungalow. It was a single family bungalow house. That was our first ever home. And it had this giant basement. And I had so much like sports memorabilia down there. I had video games down there. I loved it. And then I kind of, as I got older, realized that like, I'm not, and listen, for all of you that collect memorabilia or video games or anything, I'm not shitting on you at all. I miss collecting some of that stuff, but I sold a lot of it and was like, I don't want a lot of stuff. Like, I would rather travel. That's where I want most of my money going, is to travel. That's my girlfriend and I like to do. So not to give you a lame answer, but if I won 10 grand to spend on my own basement or whatever for gaming, I would honestly just spend it on a couple of arcade machines. Like I know maybe that's not the answer you were looking for. You were picturing like all the shelves with the fancy lights and stuff like that. It would be, I would buy a vintage, authentic Miss Pac-Man arcade machine. I would buy a pinball machine of either Ghostbusters or Ninja Turtles. I would probably get a vintage Donkey Kong arcade machine. And that would probably be most of my 10 grand. Like, because I would want the real deal, thousands of dollars. They weigh 800 pounds. I know it's not a great answer, but I saw your question and I was like, I kind of had that and I don't really want it again. I prefer digital media. I like to play my games downloaded if I can because I like less clutter. And yeah, I would spend it all on just 2 or 3 retro arcade machines that are like, a Miss Pac-Man arcade machine is my whitest whale. I would someday I want to have enough cash to just buy, like, just drop a couple of grand on a fucking mint condition 800-pound Miss Pac-Man arcade machine. Oh yeah. So sorry to kind of shit on or not shit on your question, but to give you a shitty answer, Dragon. But that truly is what I would want. I don't really want a full basement of stuff anymore. I just want some arcade machines. And maybe some Lego. Yeah, maybe some Lego. All right. And then finally, one more question. It's letter time. And Astro Alpaca wrote into us on Patreon and said, hey, Adam, here's a question for you. After listening to your podcasts about divisive games such as Final Fantasy VIII, Star Fox 64, and your consistent malcontent toward The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, what elements do you think these games have in common that provide drastic experiences among players? Nobody hates Mario, but everybody hates Mario is missing, except Mark McHugh because he's a fucking idiot. Why is there such a divide amongst the games mentioned above? Thanks for all the good work. Well, thank you for writing in, Astro. I will say for the record, I don't think Star Fox 64 is nearly is it divisive or divisive? I think it's both. I think both work. I say divisive. Anyway, I don't think Star Fox 64 splits the audience nearly as much as Final Fantasy VIII or Majora's Mask does. I think I'm in the vast minority disliking Star Fox 64. But Final Fantasy VIII and Majora's Mask are great examples of, like, to me, it's part of it is it's a franchise trying to do something different. And part of it is it's a franchise putting out a game after one of the greatest games in the series' history, right? Like, Majora's Mask came after Ocarina of Time. And while I'm not the world's biggest Ocarina of Time fan, undeniable that game is an absolute game breaker, game changer, iconic title, one of the greats. No, even I'm willing to admit that. The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time is a gem. And so when you're releasing what, for all intents and purposes, is considered like the sequel or the next in line after an Ocarina of Time, or in this case, Final Fantasy VIII after Final Fantasy VII, which many people consider to be the gold standard for Final Fantasy. When you're releasing the next game after those, the expectations are almost unreachable. Unless you just do the exact same thing, which they didn't do, right? When you look at Mario Galaxy 2 after Mario Galaxy, everybody loves it. Some people like Mario Galaxy 2 better. I think I do as well. Well, maybe. Well, maybe. I don't know. It's anyway. But they basically just did what they did the first time and just made it a little bit better, right? Whereas like you look at Mario Sunshine, which is to many people, in many people's opinions, one of the most controversial games in the Mario franchise, and it came after Mario 64, which is almost universally beloved. So Majora's Mask, everyone was waiting for a sequel to Ocarina of Time, and then Majora's Mask came out, and it was just completely different and fucking weird. And some people, myself included, were like, well, what the fuck is this? I hate that game. And Final Fantasy VIII, which I like, just changed up the recipe from Final Fantasy VII after everybody was basically like, oh, I mean, Final Fantasy VIII could have been, I don't know how that game couldn't have gotten shit because it was following Final Fantasy VII, which was just, you know, the be all end all for that series. And I know some of you don't like it. I like it, but whatever. But Final Fantasy VIII changed the script. And I think that's what I think the common denominator is amongst some of those games is that they didn't do what the last game did. And the last game was so well received that everybody just wanted more of that. And then the developers tried to do something completely different. And sometimes that works. And sometimes it doesn't. So Majora's Mask. I fucking get so hesitant to talk about Majora's Mask because I know it is by far the game that I hate the most that more people love. But I hate that game. Anyway. To answer your question, Astro, I think that's the issue with games like that, is just they changed the script and people didn't want the script changed. And if you're going to, and you know what? Half of me respects a game developer for doing something like that and changing the script and trying something different. And the other half of me is like, it's not broken, don't fix it. But then if they do the same thing over again, they catch shit for that. Jak 2. Dude, Jak 2 is a great example. Jak and Daxter, I think, is fucking outstanding. I adore that game. I didn't love Jak 2 because they completely changed it's a whole different game just with the same characters. And even the characters changed a whole bunch. And I didn't like it. I'm like, just give me more of what you just did. Just give me that again. So I think that's the problem with those games. I think I'm not going to say anyone that hates on Final Fantasy VIII is wrong, but I personally like that game. And I'm not going to say anyone that likes Majora's Mask is wrong, but I personally despise that game. So you are kind of wrong. Anyway. That's good stuff. Thanks for writing in, Astro. Thanks for writing in everybody that wrote in, whether you got read or not. I read them all personally. I appreciate it very, very much. Let's shift gears. I'm not doing game patch right now. I'm doing something else. Let's talk about our smash. Let's get into our Smash It segment. Play one, remake one, erase one. Jesus, I fucked that up a lot. Thank you to Classic Concentration from the NES for unknowingly providing us with the theme music for the show. The rules are simple. Every week I give our listeners 3 retro video games. They can play one as it was released. They can remake one as a modern game. Third game is erased from time forever. And for this week, since we're talking Parasite Eve on the podcast, I wanted to stay with that PlayStation theme. And I just played Parasite Eve for the first time. So this week's theme is PlayStation games that I want to play for the first time but haven't played yet edition. And it features Siphon Filter, Dino Crisis, and Tenchu Stealth Assassins. As always, there are no wrong answers, but there is a right one. We'll get to that in just a minute. And according to the poll over on Patreon, the popular answer with 33% of the vote is to play Tenchu, remake Dino Crisis, and erase Siphon Filter. Now, that's not what I would do. But again, I want to stress, I have not played any of these games. So, while my answer is the right one, I don't know what I'm talking about. So, just getting that out there now for the record. Let's look at some of your answers first before we get into the correct one. Daniel wrote in and said, hell to the motherfucking yes. Remake the shit out of Dino Crisis. That game was awesome. Play Siphon Filter. It's an okay game, I guess. I'm sure some other game did it better. Okay, I don't remember much of Siphon Filters, so just play it. And what the hell is a Tenchu? I've never heard of it and definitely never played it. Well, I don't think I did, but nevertheless, I'm saying goodbye to What was that game called again? Just remake Dino Crisis. Daniel, that's a fair answer with sound logic all the way around. You threw a lot of shit at Tenchu, which I'm not going to defend because I haven't played it. But I know there are some people listening to this right now that are grinding their fucking teeth at the disrespect you're showing Tenchu, especially at the sake of Dino Crisis, which some other people wanted to erase. But I can get on board with your logic. Not what I would do. You get a B+. Sound reasoning all around. Rogue Agent wrote in and said, I would play Tenchu, because this game was ahead of its time, proper, solid, but the way you could approach gameplay and load out your items just before starting a level was a game changer. Just like modern games now with your weapon loadouts. The reason it doesn't get a remake is because Ghost of Tsushima has raised the bar, and honestly, I don't think it can be bested. I would remake Siphon Filter. Both games were amazing back in the day, but when I got my PlayStation Classic, I booted it up, and what a disappointment with how it looks and plays by today's standards. It needs a massive upgrade. This game in its heyday was as good as Metal Gear Solid, but much more action-packed. So maybe how the Metal Gear Solid franchise grew is how this could be done as well. And then as much as Dino Crisis is basically Resident Evil with dinosaurs, I'd happily send it to the grinder. Nothing wrong with the quality of the game. I'll just sleep better knowing that the other two still exist. So I will say, Rogue, you're not the only one that wrote in and basically said Tenchu in some ways is like a prehistoric Ghost of Tsushima, and that gets me a little bit hard because god damn do I love me some Ghost of Tsushima. So I can get on board with that. And fair enough. If you like the other two, Dino Crisis is Resident Evil with dinosaurs. Fair. I mean, you're wrong to erase it because that game looks fucking dope. But fair enough. I can get on board with that. I don't have anyone to really get mad at today. Hammond Ager wrote in and said, well, I'm erasing Tenchu because I don't even know what it is, so I'm not going to miss it. So there's more Tenchu shade. Hammond Ager said, I would play Dino Crisis because it was an okay game, but I don't really think it's worth someone's valuable time to remake it. I would be very excited if someone were to remake Siphon Filter. I would imagine if I were trying to play this game today, it would not match up to the incredible memories I have of it. So yes, please someone remake this so I can enjoy it once again. Now I will say, a common theme amongst the write-ins is that Siphon Filter has aged the most assy of the three. I think that's an official term around here now. It's aged the most assy. Does not sound like Siphon Filter has aged well at all. Frankly, I don't think it looks that great to begin with, but that's me. I didn't play it. Don't yell at me. I'm probably never going to play that one because the overwhelming consensus, even from diehard fans, is that it just is not, it's aged like a fucking bag of potatoes. So, or something that, why do I always go to potatoes when I talk about bad things aging? And why do I always go to food? I'm not even hungry right now. Fuck. Anyway, Emily Luna wrote in and said I would play Tenchu because I'd never played it before. I like that logic. I would remake Dino Crisis in the same style as the Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes because that sounds fucking awesome. I'd love to see the dinosaurs in today's style. And finally, I'd erase Siphon Filter because it's straight up garbage and it bored the ever-living fuck out of me. Emily, I am 1 million, having never played Dino Crisis, I'm 1,000,000% on board with the idea of remaking it in the same style as Resident Evil 2 and 3 remake. That sounds fucking sick. And I'll explain my logic in a minute, but I like the cut of your jib. I like that idea. King Bahamut said King Bahamut felt the same way as Emily. This one's a bit easier for me than the last few. I played Tenchu. The game was decently difficult but fun and had a few titles for consoles beyond the original PlayStation. I would remake Dino Crisis because it deserves it, in my opinion. The series faded into obscurity after the fiasco of a third game, and I believe it's earned a chance to be remade on the Resident Evil engine. The dino horror theme has always interested me ever since I saw Jurassic Park. And lastly, I would erase Siphon Filter because I simply haven't played it, but I have seen some videos on the internet of it, and while it seems fun, I wouldn't want to remake or play it over the other choices. See, now I usually come down on people for erasing a game that they've never played, but I get where you're coming from, King. If there's two games in the play and remake slots that I have an attachment to, I'm not throwing one of them away for a game that I don't know, particularly a game that even the Siphon Filter fans are pooping on. And Paul wrote in and said, I've only played Siphon Filter, so that makes it tough. I played Dino Crisis, remake Siphon Filter, and erase Tenchu. I'd really like to try Dino Crisis. I loved Siphon Filter, but the graphics were okay then, so they definitely stink now. But tasing someone until their body burst into flames was very fun, and I'd like to do that again with better graphics. And then I'd erase Tenchu because Siphon Filter and Metal Gear Solid have the stealth game genre covered. I had no idea that you could tase somebody in Siphon Filter until they burst into flames. That bought it a point in my book, Paul, because that's pretty badass. I did not know that. However, you're all wrong. Eden Awaits 1981, Raging Demon, Game Nomad Messi, Thor the Hammer, Chris Coplin, and Slick Rick all had it right. And Rick is the one I'm going to read because Rick, who usually cheats at this fucking game and is on like quintuple secret probation, fell ass backwards into the right answer. Listen to this. Remake Tenchu. That game was sweet in its time, and after playing Ghost of Tsushima and getting a taste of some stealth action with a sword, I knew Tenchu would be kick-ass. Erase Siphon Filter. I played a lot of this game, but I don't think it would hold up, and there's enough out there like this one to keep it around. And I guess that means play the other one because of the rules? You goddamn right, Rick. You followed the rules almost, and by doing it, you fell ass backwards into the right answer. Shout out to everyone that had the same order as Rick and me, which is the correct one. Play Dino Crisis. Because of the three, this has always been the one I wanted to play the most. Again, I've not played any of them. I almost bought Dino Crisis on my Vita a dozen times. At some point, I'm going to play that fucking game. And I can get on board with those of you that wrote in saying remake Dino Crisis and make it look modern and Jurassic Parky and dope. I think of Horizon fighting the fucking robot dinosaurs and how dope that looked. And I would love to see Dino Crisis like that, but I want to play the original first. I don't want to, so we're going to play it for now. I'd remake Tenchu, because again, never played it, but it says it's Tenchu Stealth Assassins, which makes me think that there's stealth assassins in it, and the better tech that you can implement for a stealth game, the better. Stealth has improved exponentially as technology and AI and graphics and controls and frame rates and all that stuff have improved, so I have no need to play the original, just make it like new. Plus, everyone's comparing it to Ghost of Tsushima. That gets me fucking hot and horny. And then I'd erase Siphon Filter, because I gotta be honest, just looking at it, I have no interest in it at all. It does sound fun to taste someone until they burst into flames, but other than that, nothing about that game makes my mouth water at all. So I'm going to erase Siphon Filter, but good stuff. Thanks to everyone that played. Some of you were right, some of you were wrong. It doesn't matter. It's just a stupid game. Let me tell you what I've been playing over the last 7 days, and then we'll talk a little bit of Parasite Eve. And this will be a quick segment because I haven't been playing very much. I would say 90% Returnal. Like I mentioned off the top, I think I'm going to review it this weekend for Expansion Pass, and I want to finish it before Ratchet and Clank drops this weekend. And a single playthrough of it takes like 2 to 3 hours. So when I do sit down and have time for a gaming session, it's basically Returnal. Like that's what I've been playing. I've been playing a little bit of Zelda 2, The Adventure Link. We're going to be recording that podcast very, very soon because that won last month's Patreon poll, and I'm not going to make you wait fucking 8 months to get to this one like you did with Parasite Eve. I haven't even been playing MLB The Show over last week. I haven't had a ton of time. I don't have a ton of time this week because I got some comedy shows and stuff, but when I do, it's basically just Returnal. So lame segment, but that's it. Let's talk Parasite Eve. That's why you're here. It's the main event. As you know, I like to give you weenies a chance to share your thoughts before I ramble for an hour or so. And a whole bunch of you wrote in. Corey Street wrote in and said, okay, so I had this game as a kid. I watched my older brother play, and that rat transformation scene scared the hell out of me. I haven't picked it up in years. I recently played it and found out that I actually really love it, though. I like the battle system. The New York City atmosphere felt like home. Aya, I thought, was a badass. The battle system was so different than other survival horror games. It felt like a JRPG/action game. The ending was super wonky, but other than that flaw, I really cherish this game. Adam, if you ever do Parasite Eve 2, know that the game plays more like Resident Evil, but with superpowers. Thank you. And thank you, Corey, for writing in. Great story. Dude, that rat transformation scene, if you guys have not seen it, I could see that fucking with a kid. As an adult, it's kind of cheese, especially because it's on PS1 and, you know, it's 25 years old. But I could see that fucking with a kid. And this is a funky game. And I'm very excited to play the Parasite Eve number 2 because Tyler, my guest this week, swears by it. However, other people don't. Daniel wrote in and said, I wish the sequel was exactly like the first game. I refuse to replay this game again because I have very good memories of it and I want to keep it that way. I just remember the sequel being hot garbage. Interesting. And this goes back to that comment of blowing in the cartridge about why are some games so divisive when they're sequels, like Final Fantasy VIII, like Majora's Mask. I have not played Parasite Eve 2, but yeah, from what I understand, it really changes up what the first one did, for better and for worse, apparently, because some people like it and some people hate it. Brynamite wrote in and said, oh my lord, this was a game at the time Square was knocking JRPGs out of the park. It's a core game in my RPG collection, and I still believe it holds up today as well as when it was released. It's a mix of Resident Evil and Final Fantasy, and it made it one of the best games I have ever played. And it, like, trust me, we're gonna be 90 seconds into this podcast between me and Tyler, and you're gonna hear us talk about how it's a combination of Final Fantasy and Resident Evil, and it's an interesting. I truly can't decide. I like it. I can't decide if I love it, but we'll get there in a minute. Raul wrote in and said, I miss the days when Square took more risks like this game. While it's not a deep RPG or a scary horror game, somehow the combination of both genres makes it unique and well worth playing. The cinematics were great for their time, and the soundtrack is still classic. I agree with that. I think the soundtrack is fucking dope. And, yeah, the way it, again, we'll get into in a minute, but the way it combines so many genres, very, very weird. It's like they took all the leftovers in the fridge and threw them into a pot and made a game. And finally, David Phillips wrote in and said, this was such a fun game when it first came out. I remember playing the crap out of it. And an RPG in a modern setting was all but unheard of. Add to that fact, Aya, the lead, was a lady, which was still a very new idea at the time. And she was strong and so tough, but not afraid of showing she was afraid of what was happening. I wish we had more modern RPGs like this one. And you know what? I agree with you, David. And I actually think Aya, whatever the fuck you want to call her, is a dope character. And it is at the time when you had, Lara Croft and Tomb Raider and Aya, and you didn't have as many female protagonists. And I do think there's something to be said for that. And I think it's really cool. And she's a badass in this game all day. And I love it. And we'll tell you about it all right now. I'm going to cue up some Parasite Eve music. And when I get sick of listening to it, my buddy Tyler and I are going to go down memory lane and talk about Parasite Eve, which originally released in North America for the original PlayStation on September 9th, 1998. Enjoy the podcast. Let's go. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Everyone that listens to this podcast knows about our illustrious CEO, my dog Molly. But the other silent partner behind the scenes is my wife. And let me tell you, my friends, a 17-year relationship with another person that has to talk to and live with you is a lot harder to maintain than one with a dog. We've had our ups and downs, and as you all know, a relationship isn't all sunshine and rainbows. They can be a lot of work. You get out what you put in when it comes to relationships, and talking to a therapist can be a fantastic way to put in some work. They can help you work through your issues, learn to communicate better, and even just provide you with an ear to bend when you need it. I've talked to my therapist about my relationships, especially when it came to my stand-up comedy career and how much I was away from home, and they helped me work on ways to keep my relationship strong even when I was out on the road. It turned out our relationship was actually better when I was out on the road, but that's a story for another day. And I know, right? Therapy. Who has the time these days? BetterHelp hears you, and they're making it easy. Fill out a quick form online, and they'll match you up with a therapist that suits your needs and that'll work around your schedule. You pick the meet times, and you can get your therapy fix from anywhere, over video, phone, or just chat. Become your own soulmate, whether you're looking for one or not. Visit BetterHelp.com/rememberthegame today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/rememberthegame. Okay, joining me via the blank phone this week is a good buddy of mine, returning to the show, Mr. Tyler. So I never want to say anyone's last name because I never know if you want me to give away your last name. Mr. Tyler. Is that Mr. T? The Mr. T.
Mr. T. I pity the fool.
Yes.
You can say my last name. Everybody who listens to the podcast either knows me or already has me on a hit list. So.
That's true. Yeah, you have enemies. No, I like Mr. T. And I love the fact that we're calling you Mr. T and you're like $110. Like a fucking
hey,
you.
I put 30 pounds on during COVID.
Oh yeah,
I have a little paunch now.
I was gonna say of muscle or of pudge.
Just pudge. It's like if a normal person gets a spare tire, I have like a spare bike tire.
Attaboy. How old? Not to get too personal, but how old are you, Tyler? You're 36. 36. Yeah, right. So you're right about that. Like, dude, you made it to 36 without I fucking got the pudge at like 28. So good for you. You're a dad. You're busy. You have a job. You're fucking paintballing and saving the world and doing all that shit that you do. So
yeah,
good for you. Enjoy your paunch, man. It's nice. It's a place to keep your snacks when you're watching TV. You can balance the bowl. That's what I do.
Well, and then with my wife, like, I dance with it and love it. and she's almost offended that I love my paunch, and then her little bit from being a mom and everything, and whatever.
Yeah.
She's just bitter.
Dude,
Like, you're not supposed to love it. You're supposed to hate it.
Yeah.
Like, I love it. Just dancing in the mirror looking at it. Ooh, big belly.
For all of you out there listening, I don't care if you're a male or a female or how old you are. Just embrace the paunch. It's fine. Nobody cares but you. Just
body positive.
Yeah. I mean, like if you're struggling to breathe because you're listening to a podcast, then maybe do something about a little bit of the paunch. But like if it's just a cosmetic thing, fucking just embrace it. Abs aren't worth it. Abs fucking fuck that. Dude, if you told me that all I had to do to get abs would be to not drink beer and eat peanut butter for 6 months, I'd be like, I don't want fucking abs. Suck my butt. Even if you're like, you don't have to work out, you just cannot drink beer or eat peanut butter. I'd be like, I don't need abs. I don't give a shit. I don't want to see my feet.
You're only allowed
anyway.
to drink White Claw, and you have to eat peanut butter and nothing else.
Maybe I could do that. If I had to choose between no beer and peanut butter or only White Claw and peanut butter, I'll answer that next week. I'll have to chew on. That'll be next week's episode. Okay. Well, that killed a good 2.5 minutes. So as you can know by the intro, the song, the title of the episode, everything, including the Patreon poll. This one's a little later on than normal. I will have already apologized for that in the intro. This week we're talking Parasite Eve for the original PlayStation. Now, I had never played this game until I fired it up for the podcast when it won the poll. And when I posted that it had won the poll, if I'm not mistaken, Tyler, you were quite quick to reach out and be like, fuck yeah. So then I was like, oh, you like this game? You want to come on? So I have to assume that you played this prior to May of 2021 when I did?
Yeah, I played it for sure when it came out.
Okay. I was like, otherwise that's just odd.
It.
Otherwise that's fucking weird that you were really excited to play this. You were just like, I can't wait to play that game. That's weird. So, dude, it's crazy because you've been on Resident Evil episodes. You've been on, you've done, I'm trying to think. You and I did Final Fantasy VII. Like, you were a PlayStation kid, hey?
Yeah. Like, I had the N64, but PlayStation was my jam.
Yeah.
I think my dad he bought more games for the PlayStation than any of the other consoles, so it just ended up kind of being probably the means at which I was getting things. But
like now, if I'm not mistaken, like they were cheaper too. Like I don't really, because this was like the PlayStation 1, Nintendo 64 era is when I started buying my own games a little bit. It's when I got my first job, and the PlayStation was the first console I ever bought myself. But like they were a little cheaper because like Nintendo 64 stuck with those fucking cartridges and their games weren't cheap, whereas the discs on the PlayStation weren't as bad. So I can understand that. I can understand that. Plus, like, dude, credit given where it's due, and we'll get into Parasite Eve in a minute, but like as I do this podcast and as I kind of look back on the PlayStation and the games that we cover for it, and it's like from Crash to Spyro to Metal Gear to Resident Evil to Final Fantasy to Parasite to Tomb Raider. Fucking, and I know everyone's gonna be like, you forgot Legend of Dragoon, or you forgot Suikoden, or you forgot Castlevania. I haven't played any of those, so they don't count.
Nerds.
Yeah, I hope it irritates you.
Nerds.
Yeah, I'm talking about the good games. Okay, that's why Legend of Dragoon and fucking Suikoden and Castlevania Symphony of the Night didn't get into that list because I'm talking about the good PlayStation games. I can't wait to fucking get the heat for that. But I'm gonna fucking people are gonna be like, you said Crash Bandicoot is good, but where the fuck is Legend of Dragoon? And anyway,
the Patreon drops from 300 to 250.
Oh, the death of like years from now when they cover the show on like AMC, they'll just be like, remember the game was on its way to becoming one of the predominant gaming podcasts of the world. And then on June 4th, 2021, Adam did this. And then they'll play that clip. And then just everything. No. But no, banger of a console. It really is. And I'm glad, I'll be honest with you, man, and we'll get into Parasite Eve, but like, more and more PlayStation games, it seems like more than any console, the original PlayStation is the one getting all the remakes. Like with the Tony Hawk's, Final Fantasy VII, Crash Bandicoot, Spyro the Dragon, like the list goes on, Medieval, like the list goes on and on. I'm still holding out hope for, I'd love to see the original Metal Gear Solid get remade. But and I think it's going to. People seem to think that's probably coming.
And that franchise is super alive still, right? Like,
yeah. Whereas this franchise is like dead in the water. And I got to be honest, man. After playing it for the first time, it was not at all what I expected.
No, I found it to be kind of a blend between Final Fantasy and Resident Evil. Like combat and everything definitely had elements of both, even in the combat. Like, it just the way you moved around, the way the story progressed, the RPG system.
Yeah.
But then the camera angles, the look just had a Resident Evil feel, but with a Final Fantasy game mechanic.
Yeah, and the thing is like, because I like this game, but you nailed it. I do think it's kind of like Final Fantasy and Resident Evil had a kid. And the thing is like, I like Parasite Eve, but I don't think it does RPGs as well as Final Fantasy, and I don't think it does the gun combat as well as Resident Evil. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it's kind of like a little bit of both. I like, for what it's worth, and I'm not shitting on it because I do like this game, but like, I would play Resident Evil 2 or Final Fantasy 7, 8, or 9 before I played Parasite Eve again. Does
I can't believe you included Final Fantasy 8 in that.
Yeah, that's my hot take. I'll defend that game, but that's like, I would play Final Fantasy or Resident Evil before I played Parasite Eve again. This game feels like a sampler. Like, you know when you can't decide what you want at the restaurant, so you get like the appy tray with a little bit of everything. It's kind of what Parasite Eve feels like. It's not a full blown meal of anything. And where I was going to go just before we get into the game itself was I was talking about all the games that have gotten remakes from the original PlayStation. I don't imagine this game will ever get a remake, but holy ass, would I love to see this game get a fucking remake. Because there's a really cool game here that is just, I don't want to say it's aged horribly, but like, Tyler, I don't know when the last time you played Parasite Eve is. This is a slow fucking video game, man.
Yeah, that's the biggest way that it has aged terribly. Like, I feel like the movement, the mechanics, everything are still fairly good.
Yeah,
I mean,
same
you didn't
here.
you didn't have, like, it plays well. It's just, it is slow. Like, they're just moving from area to area, doing any of the puzzle solving. Like, it definitely feels slow.
It was a slow game, yeah.
That's what I felt about Resident Evil 1 and a little bit of Resident Evil 2, replaying those, like the originals, not the remakes. Definitely.
No, agreed. And I got to imagine that part of that is like, there's only so much that the original PlayStation could handle. But like, there's a great game in here that is just, I would have loved, like, dude, when I played Final Fantasy VIII for the first time a little while ago, I played it on the Switch and I played the remastered version, and you can speed things up 3 times anytime you want if you just click the analog stick. Like, everything moves at triple speed. This game doesn't need
great.
Oh, I don't know if this game needs triple speed, but like even 1.5. Like, I don't know how I listen to most of my podcasts on 1.5, and it's so much better because it just goes by faster. And I'm like, this game needed just 1.5 speed. And it would have been, because, like, oh my God, it would have made it so much better. Because there was just times.
First of all,
go ahead.
I'm not going to lie. I've never realized that you could do that with podcasts. I'm going to be listening to 1.5 times more podcasts now.
Oh, buddy, it's the best, man.
And yeah, you're hitting the nail on the head. Like, this game definitely needs that, just for the transition. Just, like a lot of games that have come out since this game, you have the ability to mount or ability to sprint, or, there's always a mechanic to, like, all right, let's speed this up. Let's get to the next thing, right?
And this game really doesn't. So if you've never played Parasite Eve, like, I've always wanted to play this game. I'm glad this game won the poll, because it's one of those games that, like, I'd always look at and be like, oh, that looks kind of neat, but like, what is it? Because like, when you look at it from the outset, it looks like, I'll be honest with you, going in, because I said it wasn't what I expected. Going in, I expected Resident Evil. I thought that it was another Resident Evil style game. And I know it's not from Capcom, it's from Squaresoft, but like the graphic style and the way that, like, you see her, like, Aya, I don't know how to say it, Aya. Yeah, you see Aya. You see Aya, and she's like, like, she does that, like, walking, like, she's got fucking like straighteners on her legs, like that classic PlayStation 1 walk style. But then, like, there's like the gunplay mechanics, and I really thought it was gonna be Resident Evil. And the thing is like, and again, this comes back to that combination. It does have the gun combat, and it does have the puzzle solving, but it's not at all.
Yeah, and the gun combat, though, it is like that to me is like the aspect of the game that I like the most. It's the perfect blending of the Final Fantasy system, where you have like time bars, but then you also can move around, dodge attacks. Like, it's very for at the time, for an RPG to have like an active combat system like that was really exciting. Like, that was one of the big highlights playing this game back in the day. That I think Dino Crisis had a similar combat system.
Yeah, I agree with you. The combat is like, so if you've not played it, like, and we'll get into the story. We won't spoil anything. I know it's an old game, but like, quite frankly, I thought the story was I thought it started out great, and then the longer it went, I was like, this is kind of dumb. Like, I was waiting for like a big twist, and there really wasn't one. But like we'll talk, but like we'll get into all that. But like as far as the combat goes, yeah, like it's an RPG with like the experience points and hit points and the active time battle and all that kind of stuff. But like when you go into areas, it's got random encounters, which I fucking hate. But the thing is the random encounters are at least fun. It's you know what it kind of reminded me of actually is like Chrono Trigger, in the sense of like you could move around on the map and it's obviously it's more actiony based than Chrono Trigger. But like when the fights start, the enemies or whatever enemies you're fighting show up on the screen, and then you're moving at all times, just like you're playing like an action game, but you can't attack until your active time bar fills up. And then you can choose if you want to use your magic or whatever you want to call it, or if you want to shoot your gun or what have you. And you actually have to play. And I honestly, dude, for like the first third of the game, I didn't even play defense because I didn't find the game hard at all. I wasn't even trying to dodge. I would just be like, yeah, if they hit me, they hit me. I don't care. Like, I'm just shooting. And I was like, well, this is kind of a cool idea, but I was like, it's kind of it defeats the purpose because I don't have to move because these enemies can't kill me. And then all of a sudden it turns out, oh no, they can fucking kill you. And then
it ramps up.
It really does fucking ramp up. And then it started feeding me my ass, and I basically had to relearn how to play the game. And then, so when the fights, when you're fighting, you're literally at all times moving your character and avoiding the enemy's attacks and their movements while you're waiting for this time bar to fill up so that you can shoot at the enemies and fight them like you would any other game. And once you get into playing defense and moving around and stuff, it's actually like, I found the combat to be the most satisfying part of the game by and large. Like,
yeah. Well, and especially at the time, because they didn't really have anything like this at the time. And, the combat and the weapon system, like, you could have had it be just a straight Final Fantasy ripoff where you pick up a gun and it's the whatever Widowmaker.
Yeah. And
it has these attributes, but you could actually like modify your guns. You see that like some guns have triple shot, some have, single shot.
I liked that a lot too.
Could you modify the guns?
Yeah, you could. So you'd find more guns as the game goes on, and some guns had no extra ability. Some guns would have the ability to like, it would shoot, 2 to 5 bullets. Some would be random. Some would, what were some of the other abilities? Like some of them would like give poison, I think. And like there was kinds of stuff like that. And And what you could do is you could get tools throughout the game, and then you could use a tool on a gun to remove one of its perks or its stat buffs, because every gun had its own buff on like attack power, capacity, reload speed, or like something like that. And so you could use a tool to remove one of its perks and add them to a different gun, but you would destroy the gun that you were taking the parts from in the process. And what was really cool was like, as the game goes on, you're almost as excited to find a tool as you are to find another gun, because you're constantly just tweaking and the same thing goes for your armor. You can destroy armor, take a perk, and add it to another piece of armor. And so like, I found near the end of the game, like the gun I was using was just jacked because it had the stolen parts and stat buffs from all of its departed brethren just kind of pumped into it. And I had this one mega gun at the end. And I actually,
what gun were you using?
I don't remember what it was. It was the gun that gives you the ability. I think if there's more than one in the game, I never came across it, but I had a gun that gave me the chance to do 2 things on my turn.
Oh, nice.
And so once I found that, I put all my stats into that gun, because then it wasn't just attack once. I could attack once and then cast a spell, or attack once and then use an item, or attack twice, or fucking what. It made such a difference. And dude, I'll tell you, Tyler, I don't know if you did this. Did you ever use the gun where your attacks would be randomized as opposed to choosing who you would attack?
No, I always used ones where I could choose who I was attacking. Oh. Like the G3A or something like that. I think, I can't really remember the guns. I know there was like a shotgun that was kind of like a street sweeper, where it had like a drum mag, and you'd fire like 5 shotgun shells and it would just hit everything.
Yeah. Because that was the thing, is like I had a gun that would shoot 5 bullets at a time, like on a turn, which was awesome. But then I accidentally put this ability to randomize it on it. And so the problem was then if I went into, and anyone that's played an RPG is going to understand where the problem is here. If I go into a fight against 3 enemies, instead of concentrating all 5 of my attacks on one enemy to get one out of the way, it would shoot 2 at one, 2 at another, 1 at the third. And some of them would be out of range of my gun because they're moving around. And dude, I hit a point where like I almost gave up on the game because I was so low on ammo because I had wasted so many bullets with this fucking randomized gun. And it was the only gun I had. And I ended up switching to like one of the fucking nightsticks and using that for a little while. And it really sucked. It was so boring, but I had no bullets left because I fucked up so hard.
Well, and that's kind of like the opposite of how I think we both play Resident Evil the same way, where we conserve so much dang ammo. By the end, you're going like, man, I got 700 shotgun shells. What am I doing with my life?
Yeah, and I died 400 times getting here when I could have died none if I had just used the shells that I've been stockpiling like a fucking weirdo.
Really practice with the double knife swipe and then the headshot.
Yeah. No, yeah, and like in this game, like you can't play this game like I don't even know if you can. There's an escape function in battle, but I only tried it a couple of times and I never got it to work ever.
Yeah.
So
I don't remember ever escaping, but like you said, the combat was the highlight for this.
Yeah, the combat, assuming that you're not out of bullets because you play like a donkey like me, then the combat's actually a lot of fun. So I did like that. When you go to shoot, it opens up this cool looking, very PlayStation 1 green grid kind of sphere over you that shows you how far the range of your gun is. And you basically can shoot at anything that's in that
dome
sphere.
That would pop up. It was like a dome, right?
Yeah.
Like a gridded dome. Oh man, that was awesome.
It had like almost reboot vibes,
yeah.
like the green fucking like lines, and then you could shoot at anything that was in your dome, and certain guns had better reach than other guns and stuff like that. And that was something that toward the end of the game, when it started to get difficult, I realized like what an advantage it was to have a gun that had some range to it. Because you could pick guys off from a distance and not let them get too close. Because once you start like say you have a gun that has a 5-shot ability, so you can shoot 5 bullets. And you're only up against, it doesn't matter if you're up against 1 enemy or 3 enemies, whatever. You put in your attack and it's done, and then you hit like, enter or X, whatever, to like make the action start. You can't move until you're done shooting all those shots. And so you start to learn.
So if you're fighting one enemy and you have like, it does a little bit of knockback, it's not a big deal. But if you have multiple enemies, well, you're attacking the one enemy, you're screwed.
Yeah, it can fuck you. And the thing is like you can't, it's an RPG. It's not like Resident Evil where at any point I can open up the menu and cash in some weed, which let's call a spade a spade. That's what the green herb is. It's weed. I can't open up my items and just have a puff and get my health back. I can't heal until my active time battle bar fills up again.
Well, it's because, in Resident Evil, you're smoking a little bit of weed, doing some downers. In this, it's all just pills. She's just popping pills.
Yeah, because she gets so much medicine. That's what you get in this one is medicine. That's your healing. Mm-hmm. But then you also have your psychic abilities. And that was, I actually thought that they, especially the early going of the game, didn't really put as much focus on the magic, the psychic abilities, whatever you want to call it. The PE, I think is what they call it in this game.
PE, yeah.
And to me, that's what really does make this game fucking cool is that there's this RPG element to it, but then there's real-time action fights with guns where you're controlling your character and avoiding taking damage, but you've also got this funky magic system, which admittedly is not the deepest magic system in the world, but as you level up, you pick up more and more abilities and you start to get the ability to heal yourself. You start to get the ability to, you can do like a psychic shot where you put a bunch of ammo or energy into your bullet, and then when you hit the enemy with it, it does more damage. You can speed yourself up. You can slow the enemy down. You can use antidote to get rid of poison. And your magic, you don't have magic points. You have this psychic energy. That's what it is. I think is psychic energy. And as you play as you play, it slowly fills up on its own so that you can like restore it and use it. And the reason I say I don't think they focused on it enough, Tyler, I'm curious what you think, is that for the first, again, third of the game, I didn't find that I really ever had to use it. And then all of a sudden I was like, holy fuck, if you don't know how to use this and ration it properly, you're fucking dead. Because again, it suddenly gets so difficult.
Well, and especially, so like in this, as far as the story goes, so basically your area or whatever,
Aya,
I don't know.
A-Y-A.
Bria?
Yeah, Aya Bria.
Right.
It's this cool name.
So, yeah. That's whatever. Okay. So basically, like you're at like the opening of the game, you go to this amphitheater opera thing, and like one of the actresses ends up becoming this like, you know, parasitic organism named Eve.
Yeah.
She had a name before that. I can't remember what her name was before that, but she's like, call me Eve now. And it's like, oh, it's Christmas Eve, and now you're called Eve.
Right.
Great rating.
Yeah, deep stuff, eh?
And she and she divulges that your mitochondria, like it's very like, you know, Star Wars Episode 1, where it's like, oh, your metachlorian count, your mitochondria is special. So the whole theater, everybody like ignites into flames and is dead except for you, and that's what your power is. But they missed an opportunity in the game. So the whole time, as you play through the game, the kind of you're said to be like this Eve, the, you know, parasitic organism.
Yeah.
And as you use your powers, I just wanted it to make it so that you were mutating more, because that's what they said. Is like the more you use your powers, the more you know, progress and fight. You're supposed to become more and more like this Eve character,
right.
more and more like a mutant, right?
So,
whatever she was.
So yeah, so like
Hentai wet dream.
So yeah, because like so like Tyler said, like at the beginning of the game, it's Christmas Eve. You go to the opera, and one of the singers turns into this fucking creature named Eve, and yeah, she makes everyone in the audience spontaneously combust. They all just burst into flames and die. And admittedly, because as you all know, I may not be the sharpest spoon in the shed. I'm slowly learning more about math and science and stuff. Mitochondria plays a big role in this game, which I had no idea what the fuck that is. But if I'm not mistaken, I'm gonna get fucking blasted over this. If I'm not mistaken,
Adam Blank failed grade 10 science.
Mitochondria is what your body does to use oxygen to make energy. I think something like that. It's right?
It's nicknamed the powerhouse of the cell.
Right.
So you have mitochondria in every cell, and that's I don't know if it uses just oxygen, but
that's basically
I think it converts like oxygen and other like proteins into energy.
Right. So basically it's how your body creates energy out of whatever. And so this Eve chick is like using people's mitochondria and like causing them to spontaneously combust because they're getting so much energy and they're exploding. And for whatever reason, and we won't get into details about it, but Aya, whatever the main character, she's immune.
Aya!
She can get near Eve and she won't break into flames like everybody else will. And she's a cop. And you're in New York City, and so basically
in Manhattan. The whole thing takes place on Manhattan. That's one of the coolest things. The little map of Manhattan.
That's what I was going to say. So the long and short of it is you and your partner, who can't go near Eve because he'll break into flames if he does, are, you know, during the holidays, you're in Manhattan and you're trying to stop Eve from destroying the world. But yeah, like, dude, so there's this part where you can, like, when you're not in an individual place, like if you're not at Carnegie Hall or you're not at the police station or you're not at Chinatown or Central Park or whatever, like you go to actual places in New York, when you're not in these places, it takes you to this really cool fucking 3D-esque, very PlayStation 1 map where everything's just made of bricks.
But definitely like if updated, and you know, you could use a realistic 3D model of Manhattan, but for the era of the game, it was like, whoa, I thought it is Manhattan.
Dude, I won't lie to you. It's 2021 when I played this, and when it went to the map, I was like, all right, that's pretty dope. Like, because you can just pick, and then you like, and you know what I love about this game, for as slow as I think this game is at times when you're in certain areas, I love that when you're on the overworld, the map of Manhattan, you just pick where you want to go. And unless there's a cutscene to further the story, like, because sometimes when you pick a new, like, you're like, oh, we're going to Central Park today. Then you actually have to like see the cops, like Aya and her partner driving to Central Park, and they're talking about the story of the game. But otherwise, you just
what was his name? Was it Daniel or something like that?
Yeah, Daniel.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you just pick where you want to go, and then it just puts you there. And it's just like, for as slow as the game is, I was like, that's maybe that may not sound like a big deal to everybody, but I was like, it's nice that it's just I don't have to fucking actually traverse the world map. I just pick where I want to go, and then it takes me there.
Yeah,
that's
like
nice.
There weren't games on the PlayStation, like, you know, compared to Resident Evil or Final Fantasy, the two games that this, you know, draws influence from for development wise and playstyle. You didn't get a chance to do that in either of those games. You still had to go to the world map in Final Fantasy and fly your airship, if you had the airship at that point, across the whole freaking map to figure out where you're going, and you'd then have to walk and traverse the whole area
Yeah, you're
and
right.
Resident Evil, you had to run everywhere.
Now the thing is like, admittedly, I didn't. Maybe I just missed all of them. I don't think there's as many secrets and stuff to find in this as there is in like a Final Fantasy VII with the overworld and everything. But I like
No, there's one big one, but I'll wait to see if you got to it.
I don't think I did because I don't remember any
Okay.
big secrets. But yeah, I don't think I did. But
You only played through it once, right?
Yeah, I only played through it once. Like
There's
I
a
won't
big
lie to you.
secret if you play through it again.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I won't lie to you. Like when I was done, I was like, oh, and I got a story for the end, and we'll get to that in a minute. We'll get there. Don't let me forget, because I have Angry Adam may make a guest appearance on this episode just for the very end of it. But anyway, I love the fact that like it's a fairly linear game. You can go back to old locations you've been and look for like bullets and guns and stuff that you missed. This has that classic PS1 mechanic to it. I don't know how you were when you played it, where you like, as I'm walking through like there's one part where you're in like a gun store and I'm just mashing X because you don't know when there is something that you can interact with. But you don't want to miss anything. So I'm just mashing X, and then occasionally like a dialogue box would pop up and it'd be like, oh, you found some ammo. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like, oh, do you want this gun?
It's a funny like component to the evolution of video games, because it was like, like on Nintendo, like you could only have, so many things on the screen. So like, every item was an item you could pick up, but there was only 4 in the whole game. Right. And then you get to the PlayStation, and it got to a point where like the graphics weren't good enough to like distinguish when an item was like something you could pick up and something you couldn't pick up. So like just every item kind of looked like, well, maybe it's something I'm supposed to grab.
I don't know.
And then like, as things moved on, they were able to like graphically enhance certain things. So you'd see something and be like, I'm supposed to grab that. I can tell.
I don't know what the term is because I don't know enough. I don't know anything about game development. I shouldn't say I don't know enough about game development. I don't know any. If you put me in a room with a computer where like you have 3 hours to program this Nintendo controller to just jump when you push A or the world explodes, I would be like, you should probably all call your loved ones. Because I am not going to be able to make Mario. I have no idea how game development works. But like, and like, I'm thinking,
we're at a point now where like have you played the new Resident Evil yet?
No, I just played 7. I haven't played 8 yet though, or Village, whatever you want to call it.
So I haven't played 7, and I haven't really played Village, but I've watched my cousin play Village a little bit. The blending of what you can interact with and what you can't interact with is so freaking seamless.
Yeah,
like I'm so pumped to play 8.
But
like,
but that's in a good way. Whereas games from this
in a good way. That's what I'm saying. Is that's kind of the evolution of it.
Yeah.
Is before you couldn't help but see what you had to play with, like interact with. Then we got to a point where the PlayStation graphics were kind of like a product of the time.
Yeah.
That you again couldn't tell what you could interact with, and then they went through this process of like everything you could interact with you could tell, because graphics were almost at a point where things were seamless, so they would put a lot of attention to detail on the things you needed to interact with.
Right.
And then now we're at a point where graphics can be so good for the background, for the interacting objects, for the characters, that everything just feels seamless almost.
Yeah, there's a lot of original PlayStation in particular where like it's almost like you're controlling a Lego character on like a painted portrait. And it's like, because like everything like, and I'm thinking of the gun shop right now in this game, but there's like, dude, Final Fantasy VII, when you're in the slums, for example, and you're walking along and everything looks so nice and it's soft edges and it's kind of, you know what, it looks like it's been painted, but then you've got this like glowing brick made character walking through. And then when there is something that in Resident Evil, same thing. And then when there's something you can interact with, they either don't make it look like anything and you don't know it's there, or it's like you said, it's like somebody fucking drew it in with Microsoft Paint on top of this nice image. And this game was like that, where like there were certain things where it was like, oh, obviously like that thing is sticking out like a sore thumb. It's like materia in Final Fantasy VII, where it's like it's glowing. I got to go touch that. But then there's other times where like I'm literally just walking through this gun shop, mashing X, and like every 5 or 6 seconds, it's telling me like, oh, there's a gun in this cabinet that looks exact same as every other cabinet, and it'd be so easy to miss stuff. And I'm not even shitting on the game for that, because that's just a product of the times. But I played the entire game with my thumb just like jackhammering the fucking interact button just to make sure I didn't miss anything. And actually that reminds me,
especially if you were down on ammo the whole time, right? Like
Yeah, you can't, dude. If you run out of ammo in this, and the thing is like, at one point, I didn't look up any walkthroughs. I try not to, but there was a point where I was like, am I doing this wrong? Because like, I am out of fucking ammo. And I'm just constantly relying on like the nightstick. And then I'd find 15 bullets and they would last me fucking 8 seconds and then I'd be out again. But it was because of that fucking randomized gun wasting so many bullets, shooting at shit it couldn't hit, and missing stuff. And most people were like, no, you never run out of bullets. And like, once I found a new gun and got rid of that randomized gun, I never had issues with ammo again. Especially once you get to the museum, because then you're fighting these like dinosaur things. And every time you kill one, it drops like 20 bullets. So like near the end of the game,
I love that level.
Me too.
Yeah, like the cut screen where they show all the dinosaur bones, and then every enemy you fight. I think you still fight some of those stupid giant scorpions, but every enemy is like a reanimated dinosaur with that weird mitochondria goo.
Yeah.
Oh, that was so good.
Yeah, I liked the museum a lot too, because okay. So I wanted to complain about the items, and I'll get there, and I got to make sure to tell you my Angry Adam story. I'm making notes here. So the game, because it's not a very long game, it's only like a dozen hours maybe.
Yeah, I think if you but it's one of those games like you can speed run through the first Resident Evil in like maybe 2 hours. Like,
right.
If you know what you're doing and where you're going, you fly through that game. Even on a speed run in this game, I think it still takes 7 or 8 hours, like maybe 10.
I would think, like, I mean, I'm sure there's people that know how to like cheese the game and bomb through it, but like it is, and this is where it comes back to like, it is Resident Evil in the sense of certain parts, but it is an RPG. You have to level up. You level up a lot. Like you gain XP like crazy in this game. And then as you level up, you learn new spells or whatever, psychic abilities, but you also gain these battle points. And then you can turn around and pump the battle points into your active time gauge so that it speeds up faster. You can pump them into individual guns and stuff to make them stronger, individual armor to make them stronger. You can pump them into your psychic energy meter so that it fills up faster. And I really did enjoy that part because you kind of touched on it earlier. And just to circle back to that, the way that you can customize your armor and customize your weapon and customize your character by pumping your battle points into stuff really keeps it from becoming this kind of mindless. Because like without that, I think that the combat would have gotten old. Like I've always complained about combat in games when there's no purpose for it. Do you know what I mean? Like there's no reason. And you don't buy stuff in this game. You don't get money. But it's fun to fight because the combat isn't broken, and then the fact that you're constantly adding these battle or these bonus points, you're picking these up in combat all the time that you can pump them into your character. So I don't know how quick you could cheese this game, because I think if you went into the final third of it under leveled in a game where it's so hard to escape battles and stuff, you might be in a lot of trouble. Like I was very reliant on some of the stronger psychic abilities in the game near the end, like especially for the final boss. Like I needed some of those abilities or I would have been fucked. And you wouldn't have them unless you took the time to level up.
Well, and I think like, I can't say for sure, but like a game like this, I think definitely opened up the idea of having RPG shooters.
Mm-hmm.
Cause then like, I think, when did Parasite Eve come out? Like 97, 95?
I got it right here, 98.
Yeah. Okay. So a couple years later, like Deus Ex came out. And that was probably one of your first like RPG shooters where similar thing where like you upgraded your character. I think you had to find an item to do it in that game.
Right.
Like, and Static Shock a year before that or 2 years before that. Right. But you didn't have a lot of like that idea of blending, action based games and RPG elements. And definitely those early games kind of opened that up. And now you see, Deus Ex is still a franchise that's alive, but tons of shooters where you upgrade your character and, like even something like The Division, where it's, our action RPG really takes elements from these kind of early games.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you.
I loved it. I love that. I love that mechanic. It keeps it interesting. You're not just relying on getting the BFG and then whooping ass because you have the best gun. You're relying on how you develop your character, and it gives you replayability if you're, the type of person to go back and, I want to try, be more of a caster and less reliant on guns.
Absolutely, yeah. I'll be honest with you. Like I said, I liked this game. I didn't love it. I really want to play the second one now, just to see if they improved on the formula. Because this game, to me, like, remember I said that like I'd rather play Resident Evil or Final Fantasy than a game that combines the two. This game kind of feels like SquareSoft took all the leftovers they had sitting around and just mixed them into a game. Like it tries
Yeah.
to do a few different things at once. It tries to tell a story, tries to be a little cinematic. It does the action combat, but it's also got the RPG mechanics with the leveling up and stuff like that. It's got like, I don't know if I would call it I wouldn't go as far as to call it a horror game. It's not really scary, but like it's got some moments where there's a little bit of atmosphere to it. I know, and the idea that like this creature is floating around Manhattan, making everybody spontaneously combust. Like I could see how it's got, you know, it's not Resident Evil or Silent Hill, but there's moments there. It tries to do so much. And I agree with you. It does a lot of stuff really well, but it just like, I would have been willing to sacrifice certain things to see them put a little bit more time into other like to level up other aspects of it. Do you know what I mean? Like it's ankle deep in like a dozen different areas type thing. And it's not bad. It was a really, I don't know if I've ever played anything quite like it. Like it was a very interesting game. I would have liked to seen a little bit more depth to certain parts of it. And fucking speed it up. For the love of Christ, speed it up.
Did you ever play Dino Crisis?
No, that's on my list, but I haven't played it.
Yeah. When you play Dino Crisis, come back to how you like this game, because they're similar. Dino Crisis is more like Resident Evil. It's more action based, like more like Res 5, I think.
Oh,
I kind of feel like you're in an action game. Yeah.
Okay.
But I wish this game would have had more action in the shooting. Like I wish the shooting would have been a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
And that's in hindsight, right? Like at the time, I freaking loved this series. I only played the first two. I didn't realize there was a third one that came out.
But even in the early going, like when they first when you learn the basic mechanics and you're doing the like fighting and stuff, and I was like, oh, fucking A. I was like, this is really cool. So every time it goes into a battle, I have magic and shit to use, and I'm looking for experience points, but I also can actually move around on the... It's a locked screen. It's a still screen, but I can move around and shoot at these guys. And there's some strategy and like, where do I position myself in relation to the enemies? And I was like, this is really neat. And you say that it's like a hindsight thing, but like, I'll be honest with you, even toward the end of the game, I was like, and it's not comparing it to games from today, cause I haven't played too many games that are like this game, but I just was like, I wish it got harder, but it didn't. I don't really feel like it added many layers of strategy. It just kind of became, okay, before you didn't really have to dodge attacks because they weren't doing a lot of damage anyway. Now it's to a point where like you better be on your guard and dodge. But like, you know what I mean? But like, it's not, this isn't like this. This isn't rewriting the book. This is not the deepest combat you've ever seen. It's just such a unique blend of everything.
No, absolutely.
Now,
and that's 110%. Like it's just a very unique blend of everything that was out at the time.
So, one thing I hated about it, and really I fucking hated it, was I thought I get irritated by games where inventory management is even a minute hassle. And maybe that's not fair of me because, you know, like when I play a Final Fantasy game, I don't even know if there is a limit to how many items you can have in your inventory. But if there is, I've never hit it. Like, and I like that. And I understand maybe for realism, you're like, well, where do they have that 750 Phoenix Downs? And I'm like, they're in their fucking purse, dumbass. Of course that's where they are.
Look at the size of the sword Cloud's carrying. You think he can't carry that many Phoenix Downs? They're feathers.
I
no
love
problem.
That. And even in Resident Evil, I can live with the cramped inventory management because
you're carrying it on your person. What you got, like cargo shorts on.
And it kind of adds to the survival horror aspect. You know what I mean? Like there's only so much you can carry, and it's the same as like when you play, especially when you're talking about the PlayStation 1 Resident Evil games. That's why I can look past the tank controls and stuff that I know a lot of people hate, because I'm like, in a way, those almost add to the suspense. You know what I mean? And it's like when you get into a safe room in Resident Evil and you've only got a dozen slots in your inventory and you're like, do I take more healing items? Do I make sure to take all my guns? Do I need to take these keys? Like I kind of like that, and that works. In this game, I found the inventory system to be an absolute pain in the fucking ass because I was constantly maxed out on equipment. And then whenever I found a new item, I would open a box and it would be like, your inventory is full. Would you like to swap something? But it doesn't tell you what the new item in the box is. And so I'd have to pick
I forgot about that. That's such a dickhead move.
So then I got to pick the crappiest item in my inventory because you don't lose it. It just goes into the box. But like, so I pick like a cure poison and I put it in the box. And then it turns out like, what did you get out of the box? And it's like, oh, bullets. and those bullets just went into my
Single
bullet box.
bullet.
And now I still have a single hole in my inventory, but now I have to reopen the box to get the cure poison out again. And it's always, dude. And like, there's the guy at the police headquarters that you can go back to that you can like store your guns and stuff with. The guy that like, by the way, in today's world, that guy never happens because he does nothing but just hit on you the whole game. Like he should have been fired. Like he's just, you walk in
Sexual
and
misconduct up the
oh,
wazoo.
he walk in, he's like, "What's up, babe? You're looking good today." And I'm like, "Dude, I'm a cop. We're both cops. Like, fuck, like, I'm not an object. Fuck off. Get away from me." Like, but you have to go back to him to like store your guns and stuff like that. And it's just, God, I'm
All
like,
the
dude.
feminists in the world just realized you're an ally, Adam.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know what? I won't bullshit you guys. 1998 Adam probably would have been like, "This guy's fucking awesome. She is hot. Let's hit on her." But like
1998 Adam would have got a Johnny Bravo tattoo too.
Oh, buddy. This fucking 98 Adam was a fucking dick. I hated that kid. But like, I hated it. And like, even like, if you're going to make it so I can only carry a limited amount of items, then like, let me keep my weapons and armor separate so they don't take up slots. Because it's like, dude, like we were talking about how if you want to combine the like a power up from one gun to another gun, you have to use a tool, which is a disposable item. You use a tool on gun A, you take its ammo capacity, you put it on gun B, gun A is destroyed, gun B gets better, and you use your tool. But the problem is, say you find a gun that you're like, "Oh, that I don't want to use this gun, but it's got a perk that I really, really want." But you don't have a tool on you. Now you've just got to carry it with you, and you have such a limited amount of space to carry items. I found probably my biggest gripe with the game was I just found the inventory management to be such a pain in the fucking ass.
You should never play Escape from Tarkov. That's 90% of that game is inventory management. Then it's like 5% building guns, and then it's like 5% actually playing it. And when you play it, you want to smash your head on the keyboard. So.
I can assure you that I won't play that. I can assure you. But like, I don't know. Like, did you find that? I really found that to be a pain in the ass in this fucking game was the inventory management.
So, and when I played it, like I played it when it came out. So to me, the inventory management was unique and kind of a new thing. And they had you could sort everything. You could sort A to Z, or
yes, you could,
I think there was a way to sort type of items too. So like just having those sort functions, like I didn't mind it at all. But again, I didn't know better. I didn't have like now, a lot of games are quite different. And I think having like limited inventory added to it, so you had to pick and choose.
Right.
So kind of in the moment, in the time, I thought it was unique and enjoyed it, but I think now I'd be pissed off.
Oh, like in some games, like I said, I brought up Resident Evil. In some games that works and I like it. But in some games, I just find it to be a bit of a nuisance. And this was one of those games where I was like, and that's what I was kind of talking about with how everything is ankle deep. I was like, there were moments where I was really getting into the game and I'm like, all right, fuck yeah. Like we got the action going. Like this is great. Then it becomes a fucking storybook for 15 minutes. Then it becomes a puzzle game. Then it becomes an RPG where I've got to figure out how to distribute all my battle points and stuff. Now it's an inventory management issue. And it was like, it just felt like I could never get into like, and again, I'm not shitting. Like when we give the scores, I'm going to give this game a good score. I liked it, but I never felt like I could get into a groove. It was always changing up what I had to do. Do you know what I mean? And then add in my frustration with the fucking bullets, which it's on me, but why that random thing is in the game is so stupid. I was like, what the fuck? Like what? When I didn't even realize it was random because they don't explain it. I thought it was just you shot 5 bullets on your turn. And I was like, well, that's dope. But then it turns out, no, it's 5 bullets, but they're randomly shot at different fuck it. I was so close to quitting. So close. And I grinded it out with my fucking nightstick in the sewers till I had enough bullets to fucking keep the game going. Anyway, so
that sounds like me in every RPG. Like, fuck, I'm under-leveled. I got to go grind now with the worst area just to keep relevant.
I was going to ask you that. I never once, outside of when I was running out of bullets, which wasn't grinding for like experience points, it was just bad inventory management on my part. Outside of then, and I appreciate that for this. I appreciate this game very much for this. I never grinded, and I beat the game, and I never once felt the need to grind. And that, to me, tip of my cap to anyone that makes a game with levels and experience points where you never feel the need to grind. That's a well-balanced video game. But that's me. I never had to grind once.
This came out after Final Fantasy VII, and one of my big things in Final Fantasy VII, like after my first playthrough, the second and third, fourth, every playthrough after that, I always grind that early level to get to get to level 10 when you're supposed to be level 2.
Right.
So like basically in the train station in Final Fantasy VII, I would grind the shit out of that.
Okay.
You get a bunch of those tonics I think you get off of them. And just get like a level advantage and get my limit break before I have to fight that first boss.
Right.
Same thing with this. I found an area that I was comfortable with. I would grind the shit out of it. I'm pretty sure I was over leveled, for most of the game.
But
that's just my mentality at the time.
Right.
If you asked me to do that now, I'd be like, I don't got time for that.
But even that, like, to me, that's like, there's nothing wrong with that, because I have games where I actually I love like Dragon Warrior, the very first Dragon's Quest, whatever, it's on the NES, is basically just a fucking grind. The whole game is a grind. And I love that game because I'll put on a podcast or just listen to music, and I when it's grinding that I want to do voluntarily, I have no qualm with it. My beef are games where like you hit a point, and like I don't run away from a lot of fights in my RPGs. Period. Like unless it's either like one of those fucking stupid fights where like it's basically designed to kill you unless you do exactly the right thing, or it's a complete waste of time, or if I'm on like dire straits, I'll run away. But I don't run away. Like 99% of the time, I'm not running away from a battle in an RPG. And when I hit a point, like to me, a well-designed RPG should be designed like that if you just play the game like normal and you fight the fights that come up and you don't run away, you may never be overpowered, but you shouldn't really find yourself super underpowered. Do you know what I mean? And if you want to grind, like you said, in Final Fantasy VII and make yourself into the Incredible Hulk, then Mazel Tov, you paid for the game, do whatever you want. But this game...
and like the first time I didn't do that, and I think I like ended up beating the game at like level 46, 48, something like that.
Yeah.
Like under level 50. I probably tried to do that stupid boss with one-winged, one-armed Sephiroth for like 100 hours because I was so under-leveled.
Right.
Like to the point of being like, oh, I need to play this differently, and now became the grind king.
It's broken.
I was going to say the grinder king, but then I realized there's a context that could
there
be.
is. Yeah.
I misinterpreted.
Not a kid. Welcome back to Remember the Game.
Yeah.
But what was I going to say? Oh yeah. But no, like, and so like to me, I really want to give this game credit for that, especially considering how many weird things it does. And I know that it's from Squaresoft, and Squaresoft kind of, they know their way around an RPG. But I was like, dude, I got to the end of the game, and this is my.
How'd you like that last boss battle?
Well, my Angry Adam story is coming in a second, but I got to the final boss, and I died a couple of times, which I'm never because I was underpowered, but just it's a final boss. It's a little tough. You got to figure it out. But I figured it out.
She had like 3 or 4 like attacks, and one of them was a pain in the ass because you couldn't dodge it. Like there was.
Yeah.
I think there was 2 you could dodge pretty easily, but there was one where she just like swept the whole screen with some kind of machine gun type.
This is
it's
all fresh in my mind.
Magic attack, but some kind of like sweeping magic attack.
Yeah, and you basically had to get right to the edge of the screen to not get hit.
But
you had to start at one end and run to the other. But I found in a lot of the especially in the final boss fight, I found casting haste on myself made a huge difference. Like it was such a little spell that maybe most people don't like. I love using haste in like Final Fantasy games and stuff too, but in this game, like it's not your active time bar thingy that it's speeding up. It's the movement of your character on the screen as well. And when you're actively trying to dodge these attacks, that's a huge fucking thing. So,
well, especially like the final boss has huge attacks. Like I can't. One's like needles. The machine gun one I'm thinking of is like needles that she shoots all over the place. And then there was 2 like big pillars of fire.
Yeah, and then it had like that big
like
purple
attack.
sweeping beam thing that went across the screen or whatever the fuck it was. It was so the final boss has got like a whole bunch of, and like I don't think I'm spoiling anything here, but I'm not going to talk about the story. I'm going to talk about the post boss, like 30 seconds of the game. And so I guess if you don't want to know, maybe skip for a couple minutes. But I don't really think this is spoiling anything for you. So you fight the final boss and you're on like a ship and you got to fight the boss like 3 or 4 times. It's got different forms. And I didn't find them too hard. The 3rd form I found to be the toughest form. And once I beat it, then I beat it.
Okay. No, you don't want to spoil this. I was going to ask, I'm trying to remember what the final boss, it's not Eve, right?
I don't think so, but that's okay. So that's where I want to. We'll end on that because I do kind of want to gripe about this story for a minute at the end. But I'm gonna get. Let me just. So I fought this boss and I killed the boss, and then once you kill this final boss, then it triggers like an escape sequence where basically it's not even really that fast. It's just this slow moving glob chasing you through the ship, and all you basically have to do is run down the ship, make the ship self-destruct, get off the ship, and not get touched by this, because if this blob touches you, it's game over. And I played this natively on the, because, oh yeah, for the record, I think I'll probably explain this in the intro, but this is why it took so long to get this episode out. I could not get a ROM of this game to work, and so I finally I had to get my shout out to my buddy Dave for hooking me up with a PlayStation 3, and I bought this game off the PSN to play it. So I'm playing without save states. Like I went old school and played the game the way it was designed to be played. And so that means when I beat this final boss, which is like a 20-minute fight, then I got to do this escape sequence. There's no saving between killing that boss and getting away. So if I fuck up this getaway, I got to fight this boss again. Now I got to emphasize this. The escape is not hard. It is not fast. As long as you keep moving, there's really no way you're going to get caught. But you're running through the ship, and in classic PlayStation 1, here it fucking comes. In classic PlayStation 1 fucking fashion, it's not one giant open scene. It's like, oh, go down this ladder, go through this door, go up these stairs, and it's loading a new screen, loading a new screen, loading a new screen. And I'm so close to getting away from this thing, and you go into the basement of the ship, and you trigger this thing so it's going to explode, and then you climb up this ladder, and you go out a hatch. And when I came out of that hatch, Tyler, the ladder I climbed was against a wall at the bottom of my screen, okay? So my character came to the bottom of the screen, then climbed the ladder. So my thought is that, like, well, when it gets me to the next level, I'm going to have to run up because I'm at the bottom of the screen. So when it loads the next screen, I'm holding up. The hatch I came out of from that ladder was at the very top of the screen. And when I pushed up, I got stuck behind the hatch. And then the blob came out, touched me, game over, reload your last save, fight the final boss all over again. And the rage that I felt from that, because it was like, you didn't even give me a chance. And don't fucking sit there and tell me that all I had to do was wait for the screen to load. Because the game has been teaching me for the last 90 seconds of running away from this blob that you don't really have time for the screen to load. The second the screen comes up, you should just be moving. And in every other screen that loads, it's obvious which way you move. If I go through a door on the left, I'm going to come into the next screen on the left. So if I go up a hatch at the bottom of the screen, is it not safe to assume I'm going to come out at the bottom of the screen? And it fucked me. That fucking blob came up and touched me. And I was like, don't you fucking dare. And then it's like a 15-second animation. And then it just says game over. And then when I load up my screen, where am I? On the bay of the ship, getting ready to go out to fight the final boss. And I was so angry. And keep in mind at this point, I'm already done with this game. I'm like, this was a fine experience. This story's kind of dumb. I'm done. And now I need to fight this entire fucking slog of a final boss again. I have no idea if you even know what part I'm talking about, but I was so mad.
Yeah, I remember it. I thought he was the final boss, and now I'm remembering kind of what happened.
Oh.
It sucks.
Why put that fucking escape sequence in? Like, if they had, and the thing is, there is a, because you go to phones to save in this game. And there is a phone that you run by, but if you try to save right after you fought the boss, he's probably going to get you. So you kind of just have to go. And I'm thinking, like, that's fair. Like, it's, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to fuck this up. This is an easy escape sequence. This should be a piece of cake. And I just got completely stuck in classic PS1 format. Like, she's fucking walking. It almost looks like she's moonwalking forward. Like she's running but not moving. And I'm stuck on this fucking hatch. And oh God, it left a very bad taste in my mouth. And I'll be honest with you, man, it's been a couple weeks since I finished the game. And I'm glad you and I
fired up.
I'm glad we waited a couple weeks to record this. Because if we had recorded this like the day I finished it, I would have given this game like a 4. I would have written it off because I was so mad at that. I hate final bosses in games. I fucking hate them. And the final boss in this game actually isn't even that bad, but I still fucking hate them.
No, especially like you said, you don't want to spoil it, so I don't want to say who the final boss is. But it's fucking gnarly.
Yeah,
like,
it is. It's a cool
gross.
concept for a final
Yeah,
boss. Yeah,
super super cool. And just even like, you know, it's one of those things like in Dragon Ball, like this isn't even my final form. Like it just keeps going. It's great.
Well, like, yeah, like not, I mean, I don't think we're spoiling anything, but just like, so basically like the final boss starts out as like an infant. And then because the mitochondria in this creature is so fucking exploded powerful, it's like aging like fucking crazy. So you kill this infant, now it's an adult, now it's a bigger adult, and it's really I don't want to say who it is or what it is, but really cool idea. I liked that.
But it's like the purest form of what's kind of going on, like the mitochondria with Eve, like she's an infected person or whatever, right?
Yeah,
and it's the same even with whatever.
Now that said, though, like I found, and this is kind of where I want to start wrapping it up, I didn't think that the story was necessarily bad, but I thought it was a great concept that could have been a lot better. And maybe, admittedly, maybe that's just because I don't find science very interesting at all. And so maybe it just wasn't for me. But it was like, dude, there's so many cutscenes in this game where they get into like the mitochondria and what happens and the science behind it, and that fucking little science nerd shows up and he's like giving you guys advice and trying to help, I felt like there was at points so much dialogue, and I just thought it was so boring. And I was like, she's a crazy mutant thing who's going to make everyone light on fire, and I'm immune and I have to stop her. That's all I need to know. Maybe that's just me, and then I don't want to spoil anything, but like your relation to the main villain, like to Eve, like maybe I'm wrong, but like I kind of knew what it was going to be in like the first hour and a half. Like, do you know what I mean? Like it didn't, like I was expecting a big twist, and then it was just like, no, what you thought was happening is what's happening. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
no, exactly. And it's real linear in that regard.
Yeah.
Like, and it's more like timing, right? You know what's going to happen. Like they kind of spill the beans right at the beginning.
Yeah.
More or less.
And you're constantly expecting there to be like a hook where they're like, but that was wrong, but no, that is what it was. And again, to kind of like, and we'll wrap this up, but like, this is like, the combat was really cool, but I would have liked to see it be a little bit better. And the story was really cool, but I would like to see it a little bit cool. It did a lot of stuff good, but not great. It was just such a unique combination of so many elements that like I enjoyed it. Like I don't know if I'll ever play it again, but I don't look like, you know what I mean? When you finish a game and you look back, you're like, I'm never fucking playing that game again. And I don't feel like that with this one. I'm like, I probably won't, but it's not because I don't like it. I just feel like I've done everything I want to do with it. But
so you should play it again.
Oh God, it's so slow. I don't want to.
Okay. There's like an extended different boss if you play it again and you find out a bunch more information. Like it totally changes.
I'll YouTube it.
All right, YouTube it. But you get access to the Chrysler building, and there's just like a whole nother story arc that kind of goes into like, I think it's like more of the origin of like the mitochondria inside Aya's body and all that.
But now
and Eve, and there's a whole connection with dead sisters, and you know, it's like the story just gets like in true SquareSoft kind of storytelling. There's more if you want.
But now I will say, good on them, because especially back in this era, like if you had paid, $60 or whatever for this game and beat it in 8 hours and been like, well, that was all right. You know what I mean? Like, and I think maybe that's kind of a product of the times to add something like that to a short game, or to give you a new game plus and give you reasons.
Yeah.
I very rarely play new game plus on my games because I'd rather play something else, but I'm never, ever going to criticize a game for adding new game plus, because I think that for people that did really enjoy it, that want to play it again, that's great. And I respect the developers, respect consumers' dollars, and are like, we'll give them a little bit more, a little bit more to eat here, just to keep them busy. Or maybe they don't respect our dollars at all. Maybe they finish it and they're like, this game is 7 hours. People are going to be fucking pissed. So they're like, all right, well then just let it loop and let them play. You know what I mean? And the fact that the new game plus, and not to get into it, but the fact that the new game plus isn't just another playthrough with a higher difficulty and the same weapons, but there's a whole different story and stuff. I think that's
Yeah, it expands on it.
I really do like when developers do that kind of stuff. So good on them for that. That's cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, all right. Well, we're at we never even got into that spoils stuff. So I don't want to spoil anything, but I will say a little too much sperm talk for my liking. Like the word sperm comes up a lot in this game, and I'm not trying to be like an immature idiot, but I just was like, I was a little shocked that there was such a focus on sperm in this game because there's a lot of sperm talk. Like this is the spermiest game on the PlayStation, unless Leisure
Yeah,
Suit.
well,
I don't
is
know if
that what
Leisure
the
Suit
slimy
Larry has
orange
it.
mass is?
Yeah. That's what everyone
Just
turns
a-
into is orange masses of sperm.
Yeah, it's just a giant gob of sperm ripping around in New York.
Unless Leisure Suit Larry had a PS1 game, and I don't know if he did.
I don't think so.
Then this has to be like, and I just realized this game was rated mature. That's crazy. I did not know that. I would have never guessed it. I don't think there was anything in this game that justified rating it mature. I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess it's
maybe
different
just the
era,
themes.
though. Yeah, sperm. There's a lot of sperm talk. You little kids being like, "What is sperm, Mom?
Yeah.
Why
well,
are
and
these
lots
girls?"
of talk of evolution and death and
Yeah.
kind of, I don't know.
I'm not even upset about it. I'm just a little shocked. That's all. But, I'll be honest, man. Unique, fucking one of the most unique video games I've played, and I agree with you. I think you brought up a great point that this game, to an extent, is a little bit of a trailblazer, and you know, maybe very loosely blazing the trails because it kind of refuses to go down one road for too long. It tries to go down like 8 roads at once. But I thought it was a really cool game. I was no complaints. Like I paid $6 for it. I would have paid more than that. You know, I didn't hate it. I thought it was a cool. I'm really. Have you played the sequel? You said you have.
I played 2. I haven't played the third one.
Did you like the second one as much?
Better, more. Yeah, I liked it more.
Okay, that's good to know because
I think it was an improvement on a lot of the aspects of the first one.
That's all I want the sequel to be is just this better. If it's just this better, I'm happy with that. So
Aya is no longer an FBI or a cop in New York. She's an FBI agent. That's the only improvement I needed.
Is it still in New York?
Yeah, I think so.
Fuck yeah. I love New York. I love this. Shout out to anyone listening to this from New York. I fucking love New York. Okay, we've been going for over an hour. I feel good. I got my rant out. I've been saving up that fucking rant about that fucking escape sequence for so long because it just is bullshit. Tyler, what are we going to fucking score this thing out of? There's 6 days. There's 6 days in the game. Oh, what, did you have a better system?
Oh, I was going to say out of the mitochondria, but 6 days is better.
Oh, yeah, fuck, out of the mitochondria. Fuck off. I can't even spell that fucking word. M-I-T-O...
No, you already butchered it.
No, I didn't. M-I-T-O-C-H-O-N D-R-I-A. M-I-T-O... Hey, we're not... Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Next week on Remember
next
the
week
Spelling
on Adam
Bee.
Spells the Game. So on a scale, we'll go 6 because there's 6 days. What would you give Parasite Eve?
3.75.
Oh, I just looked it up.
That...
I did spell mitochondria right, FYI. Shut the fuck up.
No, come on.
M-I-T-O-C-H-O-N-D-R-I-A. That's exactly what I said, I think. But now
Someone's gonna
now
play
the
it
words
back and
now the
call
words
you out on your bullshit.
Now the word spontaneously combust are in here, and I know I can spell combust. Spontaneously, I don't know if I can spell that off the top of my head. Anyway, doesn't matter. Dude, how do spelling bee kids do this? Because I know that I'm going to hear about it if I spell a word wrong. This is pressure. This is hard. And spelling a word without seeing it and writing it, that's difficult too. Anyway, sorry.
Well, and those kids get hard freaking words.
Oh, those kids are beasts, man. If you've never sat down and watched a spelling bee, watch that shit. That's some entertaining fucking television right there. That's good stuff. Sorry, out of 6, what would you give this thing?
I was going to say 3.75, but I'm going to go with a 4.
Yeah, it makes for bad radio, so I'm going to go 3.5, but yeah, I was in around that 4. It's
good. It's groundbreaking. It has a lot of elements I really liked. It's slow, but like I said, I don't remember it being slow because at the time, like most games were at a similar pace, like Resident Evil, Final Fantasy, like you put the time in. So it actually seems faster than some of those games. Cause like to beat Final Fantasy, like 40 plus hours.
Yeah. Oh, dude, this game is the perfect length. Maybe like I even felt like it could have been an hour or two shorter, but that's just me. I perfect length. I just like because I'm not penalizing it for the warts from its era to now because I had never played, at least not played through any of the original Resident Evil trilogy until I started this podcast. So I've played all three of them in the last 3 years since I started the show, and I think all three of them have aged well. Frankly, I mean they're ugly, but I still think that the gameplay has aged fine.
Yeah, and that's the big thing is graphically they're not going to age well. But
No.
I mean,
And
mechanics wise, that's what you look at. Right?
Yeah, I would never ding a PS1 game because I think its graphics have aged badly. I thought it was fine. It was like if I had to describe this game in one word, it'd be either like good or fine. It's not great. It's not going to make my list. If I ever do my favorite PlayStation games of all time, it's not going to make that list. But I didn't hate it. I thought it was good. I don't know how else to describe. It was good. It was a good game. Too much
solid.
sperm. 4 out of 10. Too much sperm, or 4 out of 6.
Depending on you are more sperm.
Yes, SPERM sperm. Buddy, thanks for doing this, man.
That was the best joke of the whole podcast.
I fucking nailed that, man. I fucking nailed that.
The build up with the spelling bee, that was perfect.
SPERM. Buddy, thanks for doing this. And at some point down the road, you and I will talk about Parasite Eve 2.
Oh, perfect. That'll be great.
You got it, buddy. Thanks, man.
I hope they do a remake at that time. I hope there's a remake coming out.
Dude, I was about to hit end. But yes, I can't think of a PS1 game that I want to see remade more that I've played than this one now. And and I'm sure there are some, but like Final Fantasy IX to me is as playable today as it was back then. I don't think it needs a remake. And
no, just a graphics update even.
Sure.
Like a reskinning.
And but all the other, Metal Gear Solid, Twisted Metal. No, but I have Twisted Metal Black. No, I'm going to stick with Parasite Eve. Parasite Eve is the one that I want to see get remade. And I don't think we're ever going to get it, but maybe we've put it out into the universe now. So maybe we will.
Well, there's an executive from Squaresoft listening.
Oh yeah, they all listen.
They're like, fuck yeah.
They're just waiting for they're keeping an eye on our Patreon count, and if it gets big enough, they're going to cash in a lawsuit for me using their music. And I'm fucking done.
And that's how they'll remake it.
And they'll use that money to remake Parasite Eve. And I won't even get a credit either. That would be bullshit. And then I'll review it on the show and rip it apart, and then we'll end the show on that. And that'll be full circle. Tyler, thanks for doing this, buddy. I appreciate it.
No problem.
That's going to do it for this week's episode. Tyler, thank you so much for giving me a call and talking Parasite Eve with me, and to every single one of you hot dogs listening to me right now. Thanks for giving us a chance, whether this was your first episode, whether this was your 150th episode, I guess 152nd is possible, whatever. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for supporting the podcast. And if you enjoyed it, if you enjoy what we do, maybe consider supporting us on Patreon. You're going to get a mountain of stuff. It's only $2 a month. It helps me out. It keeps the show alive. I don't have an IGN or a Kind of Funny or somebody supporting me. I'm just an idiot in his spare bedroom with too much time on his hands. $2 a month. You'll get over... I think it's about 100 bonus podcasts now. 2 new podcasts every week, access to our Discord, the ability to write in comments, all this kind of stuff. You can DM with me, and you're supporting the little guy. I really, really appreciate that. This Sunday's episode of Expansion Pass is probably going to be a Returnal review, or it's going to be ranking my favorite non-Nintendo franchises ever, and then we'll switch the order. But in the next 2 weeks, that's what you're going to get on the next 2 Sundays for your $2 a month. Plus, next week's Game Patch will be our E3 review, which I hope is fucking awesome because I think E3 is going to be awesome, and I'm really, really excited. Patreon.com/rememberthegame. We have a P.O. Box. You can find the full address at rememberthegamepodcast.com, but it is P.O. Box 69181, Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, T6V1G7. Just shoot me a postcard or a letter, something small. I'll write you back. We'll be friends. It's fun. And while you're at rememberthegamepodcast.com, you can check out our merch. We have hoodies, t-shirts, coffee mugs, tank tops, all kinds of fun stuff. Well, that's all of it. But all of those are over at rememberthegamepodcast.com. And finally, check it out over on Twitch, completely free if you want it to be. If you want to, I'm never going to beg you for money over there. I just want you to come hang out and say hi. Look for Remember the Game on Twitch. I'm usually there Tuesday, Wednesday nights, and Saturday afternoons playing video games and arguing with the hot dogs, and it's a lot of fun. And that's going to do it for everything. I'll be back next week with episode 153 of Remember the Game and then all the other podcasts because that's all I do anymore. Now I'm going to do the shout outs, and then I'm going to I'm going to edit the podcast. That's the next thing on the list. But thanks a lot, you guys. I appreciate it. Talk to you again soon. Cheers. Remember the Game is brought to you by our Patreons. I could not produce all the content I'm churning out these days without all of your support. So I would like to take a quick moment to thank everyone that has supported us at patreon.com/rememberthegame. And a couple of quick footnotes. I record this at the beginning of the month, so if you sign up during the month of June, thank you very much. You'll get into July's month-end shoutouts because we're over 300 people, and I just can't fucking record this every week because it's a mile long. So 306 names, and I'm probably going to fuck a bunch of them up, and I'm reading them in a random order, so I don't know where you'll be in here, but a huge thank you to Denny Proudfoot, Lukey Mole, Joshua J. Hazelman, Swanee, Dan Taylor, The Gray Bearded One, Borrow, Tunable Power, Eden Awaits 1981, Burger Rock, Benjamin Johnson, Jared Bouchelian, Kyle Dodd, PP Poo Poo, Cuckoo Pants, Kaiser Dragon, Ryan Groinus, Rob Strothman, Astro Alpaca, Daniel, The Shauner Honor, Trapper Keeper 1000, Leon Nabskog, Master Boyd, Darth Obvious, Paul Holder, Nerdy Retro Gamer 86, Daniel Stildum, Lee Evans, Kenneth Michael Brown, Emily Luna, Jerry Robinson, Branklin Jeers, Tristan, Game Nomad Messi, David Moore, Broken Spoilers, Matthew Day, Plucky B, Super Dave, Owen the Game Fur, Chuck, Brianamite, Joe Kirby, Dale Baker again, Ian Watch, Jeff Bergeron, Paul, Ronnie Sachs, Hammond Egger, Josh Valentini, Chance McCoy, Sean Radford, Karth from KOTOR, Scott Roseberry, Shannon Willis, Astral Soul, Big G, Classic Crusade, Chris Story, Russell Aldridge, El Sock, Adam Fair, Tom Maya, Oprah's Iron Fist, The Old Man of Gaming, A Sharp J, Lee Sparks, Zonko 504, Scarlett, Kyle Bolton, Chris Freeman, Tom Calver, Seth Mayfield, Jose E. Marco, Titan 420, S2 Von 5000, Bones 02, Guest House Productions, K Cuz, Candido, Born to Do It, Daniel McKee, Dan Wagner, Elijah 232, Joseph Gonzalez, Tim Chambo, Captain Cool, Explode Processing, Nathaniel Shelley, Swedish Fish, Omega 88, Tense Sparkster, John DeShazo, Squints, Gary Heather, Corey Street, David Phillips, I Worked at Subway, Raul Aguiar, Joel LeBlanc, Johnny CCDC, Wolf Magic 2K1, Paul Zoe, Fob, Kerry Waka Waka, Ryan McCown, Trevor Seven Oaks, Mike Burks, Nathan Freak, Too Loud for the Crowd, Pizza Power, Matt McLean, Doogie, Logan Hale, Jay Mix MC, Cody Poland, Murat Pepper, Spencer C. Weiss, Chris Copland, Electronic Emotions Program, K-Jam, Lord Finish, Aaron Baker, Dane, Goth C, Good A, Mega Man 2 OG, McJunior, Jafar, Rogue Agent, Kinslayer, Thor the Hammered, Stefan Fukasawa, Joshua Davis, John Byrne 86, Andy Hudson, Retro Bismal, Sam Wright, Seriously Ron P, Derpimus Prime, Mr. Meeseeks 0406, Ninja Lunchbox 79, Wolfgang Darren, Boognish, Brendan Hine, Troy Zuniak, Brian Robbins, Ferdy Martinez, JP Retromania, AJ Freeman, AJ Jones, Kevin, The Anti-Spatial Podcast, A Novel Console, M. Felf, Zoo Troy, The Honest Pokemon Trainer, Sean Clifford, Pie Messiah, Jesse Clark, Kelly, Rodrigo Tomazzi, Derek Jane, Mercury 869, Mad Shibs, Potato Bob Guy, That One Kid Nick, Dana Wucherall, Amy Gillen, James Anderson, MPG in Buffalo, Pat Duddy, 8-Bit Boovie, Poops Loomis, Raging Demon, Mr. Satan, Tony Sherichetti, Silver Grunion, Peebs, Wolverine Films, David Schnatterer, Martin Greenwood, Dominic S. Thompson, Tim L., Adam Beasley, G9PSX, PB McFadden, Jared the Giraffe, Tim Rial, Starl Probin, Jay Clutch, Very Cool Dude, Vincent L., X Water, Retro Ghosty Ghost, Ryan Bayshore, Christopher Russell, Mike Maloney, Defunct, Tommy Reynolds, Ryan Kinchin, Arpad Bodos, Jerbear, S2S, Adam J, Zane Donovan, John Quack, Ryan Yeager, Morgan, Geek Life Radio, David Ray, Danny Vega, Tom Kite, Brian Medeiros, Andre SJA Flash, A-Town, Mark Jones, Nathan Tremblay, Chris Knife 007, White Burrow, Miles from BringBackRetro.com, Brian Ransom, Mr. Nick, Michael Hegg, The T-Word, Miklos Blackshaw, Aaron Lawson, Stitch, Dario Omen, Adam O'Shirello, Jeff Johnson from Game on GNT, Craig Rutt, Leon K, Scott Brooks, Yamcha, Wyman Brooks, Chuck Schlarp, Chris Campbell, Brandon O'Brien, Mackenzie Wheeler, No One Cares, David Thompson, Dan T, Aaron Cuphall, Adam Anderson, Ben Busha, Matt Brown, Lil Buddy Fufu 89, Mark 209, Kyle Paul, Vlad Steed, Nick Sills, April Zane, Alex Martinez, Brian McKay, Fraser Burns, The Good Enough Gamer, Jason Cortez, Kevin Huffer, How Dylan, Jordan, Desert Tortoise, Joe Mack, They Call Me Badger, Kate Roberts, Luca Rescanito, Divolk, Gary C, Andrew Wright, Rex Sheldon, Scott V, Charlie Medeiros, Josh Morgan, Chris Fleury, Doug Dorn, Evan Refuse, Slick Rick, Ben Booyah, Ashley Cronin Bitter, Nathan Warzica, Joe Gillespie, DNA Gaming, Dave McGee, Sean Razine, King Bahamut, Robert Lippa, James Clark, Chris Sumner, Keegs and his stupid arrow handle, Jeffrey Mathis, Joshua Shenfield, Fake McHugh, Michael Mathis, Tyler Freezer Burnt, Stupid Monkey, Andre Sharonic, Ben Drinkin, Joe Buck, Todd, Makeshift Money, and Dave. Holy ass. 5 minutes? Fuck me. It's best prop in the world to have. Thank you all so much for the support. Consider it a badge of honor if I fucked up your name, which is probably about 2/3 of you. Much appreciated. Talk to you soon. Cheers.